minutes until showtime. Three minutes until showtime. 2 minutes until showtime. One minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana, to join the broadcast. Join the conversation. It's area code 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. You can also join us in the chat room at Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube.com. We're not using the Blog Talk Radio chat room. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, just join us over on YouTube if you want to join us via the chat. It's just easier to keep us all in one place. If you are listening after the live broadcast, you can always leave your comments and questions, etc. on the YouTube thread, youtube.com/LiberalDanRadio, or just comment on at Liberal Dan Radio on Twitter, or Facebook.com/LiberalDan as well, or the show thread at LiberalDan.com. A bunch of stuff to talk about today. Shouts out to Aaron, P-Dubs, MJ, Bill P, Jeff, MJ, currently in the chat room as well. I'm sure more will be trickling in as we go along. If you do want to support the show, the best thing you can do, if you haven't done so already, is to subscribe to the channel, share some videos, watch some videos with your friends. I'm probably going to make another Fat Man rant after the show tonight, and it will probably post first thing in the morning, around 9 o'clock or so-ish. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe 2, if you're lucky. We'll see. Don't call yet, Wes. We're not ready to. I'm not ready to take calls yet, but we'll talk. We'll talk later. Later on in the show, the topic of the show is the Young Turks. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the Young Turks, and the show may seem once we get there, it may seem a little counterintuitive, simply because we're going to be talking about why we shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves in this very important time, but in doing so we'll be fighting amongst ourselves. But in reality, I'm more going to be focusing on why we need to be rallying around the president, rallying around the elected officials, and working on electing Democrats and defeating the Republicans. And so sometimes that we have to speak hard truths about some of the pundits that are out there, especially some of the more hardcore leftists that are out there. I mean, I consider myself progressive leftist. I agree with a lot of what the people on the left have to say. I support Medicare for all. I support universal basic income. There are a lot of things that I want to do that leftists out there support. I mean, leftists don't like to be called liberal. I have no problem with the label of liberal. I don't think of it as a pejorative like many leftists do. I wear it as a badge of honor, especially because Rebecca Pratt, the conservative talk show host, named me that. So there we disagree. I don't think being called liberal is a horrible, terrible thing like so many leftists do. But that being said, I do think that there are too many people who are willing to cut their noses off despite their phases. I do see you called in, but it'll be a little bit before I take a call, Wes. So if you want to hang on, that's fine. But because I have a couple of things I need to handle first. If the audio sounds a little weird, let me know. I have a slightly different setup, so if anything sounds different, or worse or better, let me know, because I have a little soundboard here where I can do some, crazy wild things like, like that. Did that for Erin's benefit because she seemed to like that last night on the Twitch stream. As opposed to the Twitch stream where I can't hear the noises, I can hear them tonight because of how the setup is. All right, Wes, thank you. We'll get back to you later, though, if we do have time for calls. So there's that. I have a little soundboard where I can play lots of things. I have to get used to the location on them. So if you see me looking down here for a sound, if you see me doing this a lot, that's what I'm doing. And all of the sounds for the show, I was kind of panicking for a second because I'm used to on OBS, I'm used to the lines going through the desktop audio, but now that it's going through this one little box. So I was like kind of, okay, is everything coming through? But it looks like everything except for the mic is going through that box now instead of this. So it's interesting. So yeah. Hal was buffering all night, but it was his, hey, say Hal, what's up? It was Hal's best show ever. I will definitely have to go watch it on the replay. I was kind of busy tonight. My wife had to go take my little one to a birthday party for one of his classmates. So I made dinner tonight, even though I wasn't really hungry. Some of the medication that I'm on has really messed up my appetite, although I've lost some weight, which I guess is good, but my appetite is all screwed up. Like, I'll have lunch, and then I won't eat till like the next lunch, which is not good, but then I'll be starving, so I'll eat a lot, but then I won't eat till the next lunch, and so I need to work on fixing that routine so I eat less and then eat more frequently, but less. So it's a work in progress. So, anywho, so first of all, before we get to all of that, I did do most of the bits that I want to try to do every week, although the Words of Redneck Wisdom is going to be slightly different this week. It's not going to be a pre-recorded thing. You'll see when we get there. But first I want to do this week's headlines. Senator Tim Scott announced that he was running for president as a Republican. In his announcement, he said that in 9th grade, he had failed 4 courses, including civics. He went on to joke that he now serves with many other people who are also failing civics. He never said that he ever passed it. My guess is that no, he didn't. In somber news, music legend and megastar Tina Turner passed away at the age of 83. Journey used to sing about the wheel in the sky that kept on turning. Tina sang about the big wheel that keeps on turning. So I guess we all know now that Tina has gone to that big wheel in the sky. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs have placed Trump adversaries, New York Attorney General Letitia James, Jack Smith, and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger on a sanction list of people who are forbidden from traveling to Russia, as if there was any doubt that Trump was Putin's guy. Putin also banned Lieutenant Michael Byrd, the American patriot who shot terrorist Barbie Ashley Babbitt. I am sure, however, that Steven Crowder, Tucker Carlson, and Jeff Crouere are amongst the folks who have VIP access to Russia and the Kremlin. Governor Ron DeSantis officially launched his presidential campaign today. Instead of doing it in front of a large group of people, he did it in an impersonal setting online with 2 billionaires. Seems about par for the course. In Illinois, the state attorney general stated that the Catholic clergy sexually abused more than 1,900 minors. But yeah, let's keep thinking that drag queens and trans folks are the groomers. A single parent's complaint has caused the Miami-Dade School Board to remove Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman's inauguration poem from elementary school shelves. The parent wanted it removed entirely. However, the board decided that the language would be of value for middle school students. Apparently, one parent gets to push entire districts to do things now. And finally, Disney canceled the $1 billion Lake Nona campus that would have brought 2,000 jobs averaging $120,000 a year to Florida. DeSantis keeps losing his war on wokeness. Or in other words, Florida's where DeSantis said woke dies, but Disney keeps making poor Ronnie cry. It's a bed that he made, so it's time that he laid in a woke world after all. It's 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 a woke world after all. And that was this week's headlines. So, sorry about the singing. If you don't like the singing or not, there you go. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah. So, a couple of bits, little clips that I wanted to play about several things before we do get to the main topic of the show. Thank you, Wes. I love you too, as well. So, one of the things that I was amused... Oh, wait, applause? Wait, you want the applause? Here we go. There you go. There you go. So, thank you, Joey. Appreciate you. So, I guess if anybody would have said boo, I could have booed myself. There is a person who's running for Louisiana governor. I didn't want to play the entirety of the commercial because it's your typical Republican, you know, I'm gonna fight Biden and his radical liberal agenda, or Biden's radical socialist agenda, even though Biden's far from a radical socialist. clearly. But his commercial includes this little clip, and I'm going to play this little clip, and then I'm going to isolate even smaller part of the clip, because I don't know how many people remember, like, I was going over some of the January 6th committee, and they were going over the peace circle, but they weren't specifically saying peace circle, like phonetically, like separating the two and saying peace circle, like how if you're calling somebody like Michael Hunt and you don't say his Mike separately from the word Hunt, it comes out saying like a bad word. Well, they were saying peace circle and sounded like pea circle. Well, there's one of those here. So
crime is out of control. Louisiana's education system failing our kids, and our economy one of the worst. We need a new direction. We need Jeff Landry as governor.
Did anybody catch it? Let me play it again to see if anybody caught it. See if you say it in the chat if you heard what I heard.
Crime is out of control. Louisiana's education system failing our kids, and our economy one of the worst. We need a new direction. We need Jeff Landry as governor.
So, let's see. Waiting to see if anybody else, because I know there was a delay. So now people are probably just getting around to hearing it after the delay. And of course, I'll take a sip of water as I do. But yeah. So I'm gonna now. All right. So now I'm gonna play the smaller part where it's isolated of the part that he says where he says the words.
We need a new direction.
We need a new erection. It doesn't sound like he says we need a new direction. It sounds like he's saying we need a nude erection. Oh my. So yeah, you can't hear it in general? You can't hear it overall? Like, are you having problems hearing the actual audio? Turn it up. Okay. Let's see. Is that the problem? Let's see.
Crime is out of control. Louisiana's education system failing our kids, and our economy one of the worst. We need a new direction. We need Jeff Landry as governor.
Can you hear that better? Was that better heard? Did you hear that now? So that's one of the things we're playing with this audio. And I guess I'm good. I'm glad I'm playing with this with the other ones before we get to Hypocrite of the Week so we can hear it. So we can play around with the audio for a little bit. Let's see. Can't hear it at all. That's not good. Did you hear it that time, Seha, or just heard me saying it at that point? I think Seha might be a few seconds behind everybody else, maybe. Because it looks like it's coming through on the mixer, on my OBS. It looks like it's coming through all right. Did y'all hear the intro fine? Did y'all hear the opening music fine? Like not the Nimbus song, like the before the show starts, but kind of like the rock music. Did y'all hear that when we open it? Like, was that lower than normal or what? So now let's see. Trying to see if Let's see. Maybe this. Let me see if this gets louder.
Crime is out of control. Louisiana's education system failing our kids, and our economy one of the worst. We need a new direction. We need Jeff Landry as governor.
How was that? Was that better? I think I found the right knob. Y'all are my guinea pigs on this one. So we'll see if that works. Waiting for the feedback. Do. Haha, heard it now. Okay, nice. And it was louder. That was better.
We need a new direction.
Even though I'm not going to play the entirety of it, I'm probably not going to keep the entire thing. I think I'm definitely going to keep the.
We need a new direction.
That's staying on the show. That's going to be. Yeah. Okay. So I definitely found the audio dial that needed to get turned up for that one. So yay, we're turned correctly now. There we go. All right, Wes, calm down now. Maybe you had a little bit too much sativa. Anywho, so let's see. Let's go ahead, and then of course, we had of course there's the debt ceiling talks that are going on, and there's lots of hypocrisy abounds with those. So clearly, Hypocrite of the Week has to come from that one. So without further ado.
This week's Hypocrite of the Week is Speaker of the House McCarthy. Speaker McCarthy is refusing to put forward a clean bill to raise the debt ceiling, insisting on cuts across the board. And if President Biden won't sign it, he is calling it the Biden default. Republicans gave Donald Trump multiple clean bills to raise the debt ceiling. I guess unrestrained spending is fine when a Republican is in the White House. Only Democrats have to be fiscally responsible. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central on Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube and blogtalkradio.com/Liberal Dan.
What I think I do that, what I think that's funny, or what I think that I'm able to do that I don't necessarily try and do it every time. Like sometimes I end up recording it a couple of times to get it down to the right thing. But usually when I get it down to the right thing, I usually end up getting it so that when it goes like dun 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 dun, like at the end, like I don't usually have to do any adjustment to get it to go Liberal Dan, like it goes Liberal Dan at the same time it goes dun dun dun, and there's not many weeks where I have to adjust it where it's right there. Like I'm so used to timing it up with the 30 seconds that that Boebert thing promoting marriage, that's hilarious. And how she likes to get down on her knees, yeah, that's always great too. That's just perfect. But yeah. So, I just lost my train of thought there for a second. Yeah, the whole thing with Boebert and her, I don't want to, disrespect the kids or whatever. I really wonder what the heck was the straw that broke the camel's back. I want to know what caused. I mean, normally I wouldn't care. But, like, normally just let it be between them two, whatever. I mean, yeah, a lot of times when it comes to hypocrisy of Republicans, especially when it comes to hypocrisy when it comes to, especially when it comes to hypocrisy of, like, them being Puritans and wanting to pass puritanical laws, and then all of a sudden, they can't follow their own guidelines or rules that they want to follow. Of course, that needs to be exposed. But, when it comes to her, he pled guilty to frickin' exposing himself to minors at a bowling alley, and that was okay. She married him after that. What now could he have done that was an irreconcilable difference? Like, was she really screwing a pastor? Is that the case? Yeah, I know she did say that. She said that it's cheaper to have kids than buy birth control. she's not very, I mean, she did have to take the GRE 4 times to pass it or something. Maybe. So, I don't know. I think she might have said 4 times and maybe she failed. Maybe it's more or less because, you know, maybe she can't count. I don't know. But, anywho. So, you know, this week there's a reason that I didn't necessarily want to do not a hypocrite week. This week there's a reason I didn't do a recorded words of redneck wisdom, because there's so much jumping of the shark when it comes to how much fear mongering and trans panic that there's going on when it comes to the Republicans and that the laws that they're passing. And you know, there's something that was going on with Target and some line of clothing. And you know, I mean, I almost did one today with somebody who called in about some satanic trans person or something, that now they want to boycott Target for something, I don't know. But everything is a conspiracy theory with conservatives these days, especially when it comes to trans people and how the trans people are coming for your kids and this or whatever. So this week it's sort of my imagination. It's my imagination of how I feel or how I envision what it ultimately is going to be like, what ultimately it's going to look like that conservatives are going to do. Basically, this is what I think it's going to look like when, at the end of the day, conservatives have completely jumped the shark and completely lose their marbles and go, as in Spaceballs they say, completely go to plaid, when they go completely crazy and completely wig out and go 100% nuts on the whole trans thing. And it'll go a little something like this. You know, the whole thing about this trans thing, it started a long time ago. You know, I don't know if you remember the Pontiac. They had this car called the Trans Am. They were trying to get our kids way back when, by making a car called a Trans Am. I mean, but then I started thinking about it, and they had cars with manual transmission. They were admitting back then that it was their mission to manually turn our kids trans. And then they came up with automatic transmission, so they didn't have to do it manually. They were going to automatically have a mission to turn our kids trans. So I then decided I wasn't going to put my children in a car. I was going to go ahead and take the bus, right? But then I got on a bus and I needed to change my bus route. I needed to go from one bus to another. So the guy offered me to transfer. And I don't know if you heard about these conventions where they have them furries, where they have these people, they dress up as animals and do all sorts of sinful things to each other while dressed up as wolves and sheep or whatever, cats or whatever. And I don't want to be a trans furry or a regular furry, whatever. So I had to get off that bus too, because I don't want anything to do with trans furries or whatever. So I don't know how I'm going to get around these days anyway. And then I was watching something about a news about some medical procedure, and they were talking about some transplants. So now not even our fruits and vegetables are safe. We have transplants now. I can't eat a fruit. I can't eat a vegetable. I'm going to have to just eat meat and cheese now and go a full paleo diet because you can't eat fruits and vegetables because they have transplants. And then I saw some Democrats talking on the news, and they were talking about how they wanted government to be transparent. So now they're not just coming after your kids, they're coming after the parents too. The Democrats want transparents, not just trans kids, but transparents. And see, that's why I'm voting for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is not going to allow a transparent government. He's going to absolutely reject transparent in government. And then at the end of the day, I went ahead and I'm scared. I went to my dictionary at home and I opened up the dictionary. I wanted to see how many more words that there were with the word trans. There were so many words that had the word trans in it. I just threw my dictionary away, and I'm going to go to my school board and I'm going to tell them that we just need to remove all the dictionaries from the schools because our kids can't know anything about anything trans. So we need to throw out all the dictionaries in all the schools out because we need to protect our kids from everything trans. And if you have anything trans in any of those dictionaries and the kids see that, we just need to protect our kids from that. And there you go. That's how I envision this whole thing to go. That's how I envision the ultimately jumping of the shark to be, which is them just panicking about everything trans. So I don't know. Anyway, so that was my little bit. Figured it was much better than anything the crazies on WGSO AM would have had to say. And MJ, that's actually the thing. Is like the thing about comedy is that it's plausible. I can hear one of those people calling into that radio show saying this kind of BS. I can hear them saying it. See, if there was one model of the Firebird Trans Am was supposed to look like a Batmobile, and you know what they said about Batman and Robin? Yeah. Oh my. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. I actually hit record on it before I started, so I don't have to worry about it downloading, so I can actually upload as a bit as well and have that be uploaded immediately after the show as well. So, let's see. Don't get them started on the Trans Am. Yeah, I mean, and the only thing I couldn't think of anything else trans word wise that would have fit otherwise. But what does a transfer in Mickey Mouse? Bicycle. Hey Dan, it's Bicycle Mike. Hey Bicycle Mike, how's it going? Appreciate you. Is that Wes again? Still not ready for you, Wes. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm going to be taking calls today. I think we got too much stuff to talk about. So I heard similar comments like that in Kroger. They believe what's going on in second grade class in West Virginia, nationwide, and the left, it's everywhere. Transcontinental breakfast. I actually was thinking about a transcontinental flight, and I was thinking of that, or like transnational. I just couldn't think. Oh, yes, I should have thought about Transform. Yeah, you had. I should have thought about Transformers. Yes, I'm disappointed with myself that I didn't think about Transformers. More than meets the eye, indeed. Transformers, that is more than meets the eye. You take off their pants and you get something you weren't expecting. Although it was a contest. If any of y'all have played Cards Against Humanity, there was a contest where you could submit cards for the next release of Cards Against Humanity, and basically you have these like black cards where you have a blank, and then it's some sort of other words, and you have to fill in the blank, and then you have white cards that have the word, and you try and fill in the blank with the white cards, and you try and put the funniest word possible. And one of the things that one of the cards that I came with and I submitted, of course none of mine made it, but one of the things that I came up with was instead of Transformers, I put Cisformers, exactly what meets the eye. I thought it was funny, but whatever. One of the things I did think of that I didn't include in that one was transubstantiation. I didn't think that my character would have been able to have known what transubstantiation was. So let them, I didn't think that was going to work right. Anywho, so let's go ahead and we're going to change the view on this one. Let's switch to the alternate view. Whoop. There we go. And just a quick reset, patreon.com/liberaldan, patreon.com/liberaldan to support the show. If you want to support it monthly, buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio, or go to liberaldan.com and click the Buy Me a Slider button, and you can support me one time, or you can just scan the Venmo at liberaldan on Venmo. Just don't just do it with friends and family, because you're not buying anything from me, so there's no need to do any sort of payment protection or whatever if you want to do it one time as well. Title of the show is The Young Turks, and of course Cenk Younger and Ana Kasparian, part of Young Turks. And I did a video about them that was both a Words of Red, not Words of Red, it was both a coming to terms with activism and a Fat Man rant, talking about how they were terrible when it came to some issues dealing with trans folks, especially when it came to pregnancy, and talking about the abortion issue and the fact that there are trans men who can be pregnant. There are non-binary folks who can be, who are, assigned female at birth, and as such, but who don't use she, her pronouns. And as such, when you are referring to people who are affected by the Dobbs versus Jackson ruling, that instead of, referring to women, that you may just refer to people as, I tend to refer to people as people affected by the Dobbs versus Jackson ruling, or maybe people who can get pregnant or something like that. I don't like using the people with uteruses line or whatever. I don't think that's necessarily something that's as productive, I guess, because I don't necessarily like defining people by their function per se. But I think like people affected by the Dobbs ruling or people harmed by the Dobbs ruling is better, because you're now talking about the effect of the ruling on those people, and it doesn't necessarily include like all women, because there are women who can't get pregnant, so those people aren't necessarily harmed by the Dobbs ruling in and of itself. There are people who, be it because of old age, be it because of a medical condition, be it because whatever. But then there are also other people who do not identify as women who can get pregnant, and as such should be included in the conversation as well. And Ana Kasparian and Cenk Younger are all both being really ridiculous about it. And yes, his formers. And hey Benny Loco, what's going on? And they were just like regurgitating conservative talking points and turf talking points when it comes to that. But Cenk Younger has been doing even more, and I'm sure Ana has been doing it too. And I could probably go over to her page as well and find much of the similar stuff. But I was picking on Ana a bunch, so I was gonna pick on Cenk a bunch as well. I feel like I got used to using persons or people rather than women faster than I thought I might, and it works. And I've been dealing today with a bunch of people talking about some of the trans issues as well. Like there are like this one person on Twitter who's supposedly a person who's gay, and is a person who doesn't want to be referred to as part of the LGBT community. Just wants to be referred to as somebody who is part of the LGB community, because does not want to be included as with T for whatever reason. And I'm like, well, wouldn't you think you would want to stand in solidarity with other marginalized and oppressed people when standing up against those who want to marginalize and oppress you? But I guess not. So whatever. But I think it's perfect that when I loaded Cenk Younger's page for today's show, the first tweet on there was, I want to congratulate Joe Biden on finally accomplishing his mission, because it's his mission according to Younger, because he's being disingenuous on his very first tweet. He's being disingenuous. I want to congratulate Joe Biden on finally accomplishing his mission of uniting the country. Everyone on the left and on the right, he thinks he's handled the politics of the debt ceiling disastrously. I don't think he's handled the politics of the debt ceiling disastrously. I think he's holding the line. I think he's doing fine. I think at the end of the day, at the very last second, if he has to do something, he'll do something. But I think he's waiting till the very last second and forcing them to play a game of chicken, and forcing the Republicans to prove that they're being ridiculous, because they gave Donald Trump a blank check, but they're refusing to give him one. They're being hypocrites, as I said in Hypocrite of the Week. The only people who don't think Biden is the world's worst politician work in mainstream media. Well, I don't work in the mainstream media, clearly. I'm not rolling in the dough doing this. I'm a software developer. So I don't think Biden is doing terribly at all. But here's Cenk trying to, he's trying to attack, and it's one of his, he's always attacking Joe Biden. Attack Joe Biden. It's his thing. He has to attack Joe Biden all day long. And now he'll attack Republicans too, because, you know, he's not conservative. What's going on, Teresa? How you doing? To anybody who's tuning into the show late, I highly recommend. I do have the headline bit, and I do have the other bit that I did isolated in separate recordings that I will be uploading after the show. So you don't necessarily have to go back and rewatch the entire show, but keep your eyes peeled for those two things that I'll be uploading after the show, because I got some good responses from the folks in the chat about those things. Anyway, so let's continue. Let's continue to scroll down old Cenk's Twitter feed there. They're, you know, lunatic now, and he's calling them lunatic Republican politicians. So he's not completely off base or whatever. Right now, the forces of hatred are winning. They're tearing us apart. I mean, even worse, they're getting us to hate them, therefore doubling the hatred. The forces of love desperately need to come back. We somehow have to bring this country back together again. But you're not going to do that if you're going to constantly attack the one part, the guy who's the head of the party right now, who is the only guy right now that could potentially do it. And he doesn't seem to understand that. And this is going to be the central theme of this show, which is that Cenk Younger, Ana Kasparian, Young Turks, many of the folks that are that part of that media will sit here through October 2024 and will bash Biden, bash the Democratic Party, bash centrists, they'll especially bash centrists. They will bash centrists. They will bash the people who run the party. They will bash I'm looking for a word and I can't find it off the top of my head because they throw it around all the time. The establishment. They will bash the establishment. They will do all of this bashing all the livelong day through October 2024-ish. Maybe they'll stop a little earlier. Maybe they'll stop a little later. And then come November, if Biden loses, they'll be like, well, what happened? Why couldn't he have won? Well, maybe it's because you spent all of this time bashing Biden, bashing Democrats, bashing the establishment, bashing everything you could, instead of spending your energy fighting the enemy, fighting the problem, which is the Republican Party. KQBs, Cenk profits off of chaos. Exactly. He makes a big deal. Yeah, P-dubs, I stopped watching Young Turks a long time. The only time I watch the Young Turks is if I need to get something off the show or make some video or something. If I see something that needs to be, expounded on the show. So this is something he's dealing with when it comes to Trump and Republicans. Republican war on math continues. For Democrats outraged that MTG paid the House GOP campaign arm $100,000 in an auction for chapstick. Are you sure Democrats don't pay into their campaign arm the same way? Easy to make fun of the GOP, but Democratic politicians participate in the same exact corruption. Okay. I mean, yeah, there are problems with overall with how fundraising goes on. Sure. But you can expose that, again, without necessarily, you can talk about things in general terms, again, without attacking the Democrats in and of itself. But look, and I will criticize Biden. I've criticized Biden before. I criticized Obama when Obama was president. I criticized Kamala during the primary season because I had some issues with Kamala, with A, with some of her attacks on Biden, B, with some of her job that she did, with some of the problems that she did as she was Attorney General in California. But still, When it's time to come together, it's time to come together. And time to come together isn't October 2024. Time to come together is much sooner than that. But Cenk Younger is not going to see it that way. He is going to be attack well into the election season. Well, he's going to be complaining that like RFK can't get a fair shot, even though RFK is just a crazy Republican with some weird feelings. Let's see, Aquatic was, what'd you say? What I missed the Aquatic say? DeSantis is too busy wiping his nose on veterans. Yeah, what did Aquatic say? Anyone but Joe or Trump. Well, the problem... Wait, why do you want DeSantis? Aquatic. What? You want DeSantis? What? Why? I mean, I understand the need for fresh blood, but how is DeSantis fresh blood? I don't get that. I don't get how DeSantis is fresh blood. Not at all. Like, he's just younger Trump. That's more hard right. I think Trump is less extremist when it comes to conservatism than DeSantis. Trump is not a believer. Trump plays... I think Trump actually criticized DeSantis for pushing a 6-week abortion ban because Trump believes that's too far, while taking credit for the fact that if it wasn't for him, that the Republicans wouldn't be able to pass all of these draconian laws. But he still believed that the 6-week abortion ban is too far. Now, I don't know if he believes that the 6-week abortion ban is too far because he sees it as politically non-viable. He sees it as making them politically weak. I don't know if he sees the 6-week abortion ban as bad because he really thinks it's bad, because he wants any mistress that he has to he wants them to be able to have an abortion, and he lives in Florida, and he wants them to be able to abort and actually have the opportunity to if he gets them knocked up. Or I don't know if he just wants to use it as a tool to attack DeSantis, and because he sees DeSantis as the only possible threat to him, because there are two types of people. Well, I'm sorry. There are 3 types of people who are running for president under the Republican ticket right now. And I don't know if there's going to be any more types of people running for president under the Republican ticket. There's Donald Trump. That's the one type of person. There's the Republicans who are running, who don't like Trump, who want to unseat Trump, who don't think Trump should be president again, and who want to take his place. And then there are the other people who are running, who like Trump, who are trying out to be the vice presidential nominee, but also want to be there in case Donald Trump goes away for some reason. Either he has to flee to a non-extradition country, or he gets locked up and for some reason can't run. And as such, the Republicans would then need another person. Like Vivek Ramaswamy, for example, would be one of those people who I think is running to either try out to be vice president or to be there if Trump has to either decide to not run or decides to run away. So, like I said, I'll take RFK to see RFK. His whole vaccine thing is just wacko. DeSantis just signed a bill that allows Florida to take away kids, even out of state, if the child is thought of as being the proper way of saying it, Ken, would be if the child is transgender, would be the proper way to say it, or just say trans. If it's a trans child, trans kid, if they take the kid out of state, especially if they take the kid out of state for a gender affirming procedure, Now, of course, DeSantis and conservatives are trying to fearmonger. They think that they're doing like bottom surgery on 12-year-olds or even younger, and that's just not true. They're not doing that. They are, but I think it was it Montana? I think it's Montana or Minnesota, one of the two. One of those two, the state just passed a law that basically said that if a parent from Florida, they don't specifically state Florida, but using Florida as an example with Florida's law, if a parent brings a kid from Florida to that state to get gender affirming care, be it anything, be it like a consultation to see whether or not they should get, let's say they're a young trans male and need to get a binder, or maybe they're a young trans woman and want to get some special undergarments that will help tuck better, for example. That might be enough for DeSantis to want to take away the kid from the parents. Well, according to that law in the other state, the new law would say that no, you cannot. Your warrants, your subpoena, your extradition is no good here. I don't think that the idea that you can just yank a kid away from their parents. This is the thing that we talked about with Gibson Media a few weeks ago, I believe it is. Is the fact that, to me, the true conservative viewpoint, at least should have been or would have been, that it should be up to the parents and to the doctors to get together with the child to determine what kind of care needs to be obtained. Now, Wes, just want to make sure that you understand, there's no place in the United States that I'm aware of that is going to be doing bottom surgery on any child. If you're under 18, there's no place in the United States that I'm aware of that is going to be cutting into a young trans woman and that is going to be doing bottom gender reassignment surgery. Nobody is going to be turning anybody's lower extremities into a vagina, into a vulva, or whatever, before 18. And typically places that do gender reassignment surgeries will typically require at least a year of hormone therapy prior to it. Now, if you, back on the show, maybe about 2 years ago now, I had Evie call in, Evie Winners. You can go to eviewinters.com, and so eviewinters.com, what's it? Aquatic, I hope you don't believe that I'm being hateful towards you, but I don't understand. Like, I just don't see how you can say DeSantis is fresh blood. I don't see that. I just see him as your typical run-of-the-mill extremist conservative right-winger who wants to use government to control people. And I don't think that that's fresh or new or anything different, like, at all. Anyway, so back to Wes. Nobody is going to be, you have to be like on a, so if you go to eviewinters.com, eviewinters.com, you can get information about her, and I think she links to her YouTube page. And I think on her YouTube page, you can literally see her surgery. Like, you can watch her getting her surgery done, where full on, you can see everything. So it's not for I couldn't watch it. I just couldn't. It was too much for me. I could not watch the surgery. It was, I'm usually not bad when it comes to blood and stuff. It was too much. I couldn't watch the surgery. But Here's the thing. I believe it's correct to say that she was on hormones for at least a year before getting that done. And there was a lot of therapy being done. There was a lot of other things being done, a lot of consultations being done. And eventually, at the end of the day, once everything was said and done, she had her procedures done. But she was also an adult when she had her procedures done. Because again, they don't do it to children. It's not. It is a lie that it's done to kids. Nobody is doing bottom surgery on kids. Now again, they may do hormones. They may start hormones early. They may do puberty blockers early. They may do that. They don't do gender reassignment bottom surgery on kids. There's been one group, it's like Gays Against Groomers or something on Twitter, and they are spreading all sorts of BS on Duke, like in North Carolina, it was supposedly like had a picture of or a clinic, and it was like a gender clinic, and they said they had patients as young as 2. And they took that, lots of conservative crazies took that as meaning that they were starting gender reassignment or gender affirming care as young as 2. And I'm like, no, because if you go and you read what the clinic does, it doesn't just deal with trans people. It doesn't just deal with issues pertaining to trans folk. It deals with all sorts of issues like ambiguous genitalia when it comes to development. It deals with all sorts of issues that you might have to deal with as it pertains to the development of somebody's body, both with abnormal development of genitalia, certain other syndromes, etc. It's not just trans folk that they deal with. This is they can't. They have blinders on. They only hear trans and kid, and they get all freaked out. It's just like when, I talk about like the voter ID thing, and I say I don't have a problem with the requirement to show an ID to vote, but my problem with these laws are the non-ID requirements that are put into these laws. It's these other issues, and that I have a problem with these laws with. And all they hear is I have a problem with these laws and voter ID, and then they say, why shouldn't you need an ID to vote? And they have blinders on. They can't pay attention to anything else because all I heard was I have a problem with this law, and that's it. Real Bill P, they say the same thing about Boston Children's Hospital. Exactly, they did say the same thing about Children's Hospital. And I think the only thing about Boston Children's Hospital is I think they will do top surgery at 16. But in order for them to do top surgery at 16, i.e. the removal of breasts, is that they will do... they will have to have lots of therapy that's being done. They will have to have various, write-offs and sign-offs and everything of the sort in order for them to be able to have a valid documentation, all their I's dotted and T's crossed, that this is what needs to be done. And as long as they have everybody's okay, it'll be done, including a test that shows that this 16-year-old is more mature than your average 16-year-old and is able to consent beyond the average 16-year-old of that person's peers. Simple as that. So be it a person who is a trans man or if they're non-binary or whatever. I mean, I know a woman. I know a woman now who, when she was in college, when she was a freshman in college, she actually had breast reduction surgery prior to her being 18. It wasn't a complete removal, but she had a breast reduction surgery. I saw the scars. I didn't see anything else, but I saw the scars. But the reason why is because she just happened to have, as Monty Python would say, huge tracts of land. And it was hurting her back, and so she needed a surgery. these conservatives would probably have been like, well, why did you, don't leave your hands off the, well, she needed the surgery in order, because she was in pain. Well, mental pain is valid too. And that's one of the things that these conservatives just don't get. I think maybe this is one of the bottom lines here, and we're way off topic here, but I don't care. One of the things that a lot of conservatives just don't seem to get is that when you're in pain, it's pain. Mental health is related to your physical health. Mental pain is valid. Mental pain still has to be dealt with. But conservatives say, oh, your mental pain, you're just a wuss dealing with your mental pain. So, let's see. Voter ID is all I need to give everybody over 18 a free ID. Yes, exactly. I agree with you there. But also, there's if one of the videos that I've done on voter ID laws is that in one of my videos, I actually go to the Heritage Foundation site, which is, obviously a conservative site, because I love using conservative sources to debunk conservative claims, because what can they do? They can't use this is a liberal source. No, I'm using the Heritage Foundation. What's up? You can't attack me for using a source that you don't like, because I'm using your source. What you gonna do now, bruh? And I go to their website and I look at all of the data that they have, and of all of the cases of voter fraud that they report, 6 of them out of millions would have been prevented if you had an ID law or an ID requirement to show an ID to vote. All the other ones, an ID wouldn't have stopped it. Voter ID would not stop most, if not all, election fraud, voter fraud. And the ones that there's no reason for somebody to commit voter fraud that would be helped with that where they're not having an ID or using a wrong under something where it's just the gains, the possible gains that you get for committing that act of fraud is not worth the risk. That's why it's a silly argument. But I'm fine. Give everybody an ID. Get it over with. Just take that argument away from them. And then they can't use the voter ID laws as vehicles to push their other nefarious schemes in. Then they have to find other ways to push their nefarious schemes in, eliminating same-day registration, eliminating different types of voting like they did in North Carolina, and in looking at all the different ways that people vote and only eliminating the things that are used by black people, etc. Phil says Scott Walker's first move was to make Wisconsin IDs ineligible to use as a voter ID. Exactly. Even though they are an official government ID. And Republicans have tried to stop kids at college from being able to vote, even though Supreme Court precedent does state that college kids are officially residents of the state that they attend college in, and as such should be able to cast a ballot in the states that they attend college in, even if their parents live in different states. And by someone like voter fraud is a Republican talking point that is irrelevant. And a lot of times when you see cases of voter fraud, guess what? It's Republicans doing it. It's just like all the Republicans I'm going to say the government doesn't work and then I'm going to get elected and prove it. I'm going to show you that there's voter fraud because I'm going to go commit some voter fraud right now. So Arizona banned foreign parts from their voting machines, all paper ballots this next election. And see, this is the thing. This is the thing with the whole paper ballot thing. And this is what I don't like. And I finally figured out why conservatives, and Trump specifically, is pushing for all paper ballots and all hand counting. Because this is what they're pushing for. Because because I've never, they complain that we can't count the ballots in time, that you know, Trump is like, stop the counting, but then, and it's counting is taking too long. Well, the reason counting is taking too long was because, you know, some states are not allowed to count until after all the votes are in, especially like the early votes. But now you want everything, but they're still being tabulated by hand, or not by hand, they're still being tabulated by machine. So now you want it tabulated by hand, and it's not just presidential and congressional stuff. There's all sorts of other things on those ballots. So now you want to tabulate all that crap by hand? Well, I figured it out. Why they want all paper ballots with no other trail. It's easier to just throw them away. If you have paper ballots without any sort of other trail, you can just go, whoops, they're in the trash. No record, nothing, gone. And what can you do? If there's a computer, you can do digital forensics and try and get any sort of backup. My sort of ideal system would be a computerized system with paper receipts, where, like, let's say I would literally, like, cast a vote and, like, get a receipt, and I could expect my receipt and say, yes, I know Wes is at home. I told Wes not to call in because I didn't know if I would be able to take a call yet. But Wes still decided to call, so I said not to call yet, Wes, but you still called, so I said I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to you. So my ideal idea for a voting machine would be electronic machine. You hit your vote. You hit your choices. It tabulates the vote. It saves it to a hard drive that's air gapped, so it's not connected to any sort of internet. Right? It's not connected to any internet. Then it also prints a receipt. The voter scans the receipt, makes sure that the receipt is correct, and then inserts that receipt into some sort of till or something, like a lockbox. So you have a paper receipt in the lockbox for that machine. Then, when it's time to upload the data, you get a copy of you have some sort of process that copies the data onto a separate drive, and you plug that drive into the internet, right? So that drive gets uploaded into the central system, and gets uploaded up into the central repository, where it then gets tabulated and included with everybody else. So the main drive, where that has the original votes, is still clean and fresh and untouched and never touches the internet, and also can be compared to what was uploaded. So you can always do a compare and contrast, and you can say, okay, this is what was here and this is what was uploaded, so we can do a compare and contrast with that. And also, if you need to audit it, you can compare it to the paper and say, okay, well, this is the paper results and these are the computer results, and you can do an audit of the machines as well. And to me, that would be the best way to do it. But no one wants to listen to me. No one wants to listen to old liberal Dan. All right, Joey, have fun watching Chicago PD. Appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. Problem with the bubble sheet or whatever. There was always the hanging Chad issue. So no Chads. We don't want Chads. But even with the bubble sheet, like, problem with like bubble sheets and scantrons and stuff like that is, if there's always the whole argument, did they fill in the circle completely correctly? If you go outside the circle, is it a valid vote or not? You know, what if somebody's little thing went into another circle, but it's mostly in this one, and what do you count it as? Is it a valid vote? Does it invalidate the entire ballot? Then you have people arguing over all that BS, and it's, ugh. So that's why I like computer system ballots. That's why I like the computers, because there's no discrepancy. You push the button is pressed, boom. There's nothing you can mess up when it comes to your input. You as long as it's tested properly, you input your button, you make sure all your buttons are pressed correctly, you submit your ballot, then you can see your receipt, you can see that your receipt votes correctly, you push it in. There you go. I mean, yes, Al Gore did create the internet. I mean, all things in the internet is based on an algorithm, right? Right? Everything that's code is based on an algorithm. All right. So here we go. So here's talking about the guy with the truck. So let's scan down a little more. Here's Marjorie Taylor's boyfriend, who's a bigot in drag. Shocking. I know one of the persons in chat spoke about that enough. Now, Biden should have never started negotiating with Republicans over the debt ceiling because now he'll take half the blame if it falls apart, and GOP has an incentive to crash the economy while Biden is president, especially now that he voluntarily took some of the blame for no reason. So the last tweet was he handled it poorly. Well, how did he handle it poorly? What did he want them to do? Not negotiate? Like, what? What the hell did he want Biden to do? Let's go into that thread. And let's see if he just says what the hell he wanted Biden to do. I don't even see anything from him stating what he actually wanted Biden to do. So it's just, he shouldn't have done anything. Good job, Cenk. There you go. A whole bunch of nothing. Wait, that video said, I don't know if the video said Casa Mañana. Oh, I missed it. Let's see. Jim Clyburn is the perfect example how Democratic leaders secretly work with Republicans to betray their own voters. And this guy is revered in Washington. His corruption is not frowned upon. It's considered savvy. Oh, here we go. Attacking Democrats again. How Rep. James Clyburn protected his district at a cost to black Democrats. Let's see. Let's see what this article says. Because I'm sure it's actually not what's going on. I'm sure what is actually going on is completely different. Facing the possibility of an unsafe district, South Carolina's most popular... I'm scrolling too far. South Carolina's Senate Judiciary Committee texted Dalton Tresvant, a key aide to Rep. Jim Clyburn. Hey, Dalton, Andy, blah, blah, blah. He wrapped up some morning things quicker, blah, 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 blah. State legislator had begun the crucial task of redrawing voting district lines after the 2020 sentence. Even small changes in lines can... Who wins, who loses. Clyburn had a problem. His once majority black district had suffered a daunting exodus of residents since the last count. He wanted his seats to be as safe as possible. Republicans understood the powerful black Democrat could not be ignored, even though he came from the opposing party and had no official role in the state process. Fortunately for them, Clyburn is 82 and recently elected, had long ago made pace for the art of bartering. Tresvant made his way to the grounds, blah, 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 blah. Some of Tresvant's proposals appealed to Republicans. The sketch added black voters to Clyburn's district while moving out some predominantly white precincts. Republicans kept Tresvant's map confidential as they worked through the redistricting process. Look, and here's the thing. They're trying to all claim that this is all Clyburn's thing. And here's the thing. The Republicans were going to draw this district, whether or not they were working with Clyburn, the Republicans were going to draw this district to be a black district regardless of what any work with Clyburn or not. Why? Because that's how Republicans gerrymander. They pack all of the black voters into one district. That's what they do in Louisiana. Louisiana is 1/3 black. 1/3 of the Louisianans are black citizens. But only one seat represents Democrats because they have New Orleans and they have, let's see if I can bring up a map of Louisiana 2nd Congressional District. This is the Louisiana's 2nd Congressional District, right here. In the red. Stop. Collapse that panel. This is what it looks like. All this red right here. Like, let's zoom in a bit. Like, it goes all the way up the Mississippi River. Like, it's this area right here. It cuts out this right here. See this area right here? This is not part of it. This is like majority white area of New Orleans metropolitan area. This is a lot of white people. This is a lot of black people right here. This is a lot of white people. This is a lot of nothing right here. National park and as such. And it just kind of just goes up the river. You see right here? See these two little red lines right here? It's just going up the river right here. See, there's a lot of green, lot of green. And then it goes up to Baton Rouge. Hour and a half away. Thank you, P-Dubs, for joining us. Thank you so much. It goes all the way up here. So why did they do this? To pack lots and lots of black people into one district. From New Orleans all the way up to Baton Rouge. So don't tell me that Clyburn is that this is something that was done because of Clyburn trying to do. This is what Republicans do to keep their power. It's not what Clyburn's doing to keep his. It's what Republicans do to keep theirs. And we're going to open that in a new tab so we can respond to it later because, apparently Cenk Younger doesn't understand what packing a district means. But again, he's attacking the establishment. He's attacking Democrats because that's what he does. He attacks Democrats instead of, and he's especially attacking Democrats when he should be attacking Republicans because this is Republicans keeping their power. But instead of attacking Republican gerrymandering, he's attacking a Democrat for it. Oh, is Andrea here? Hey, Andrea, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Again, watch out later. I'm going to be uploading 2 of my bits that I did earlier that I already isolated. And both of them have funny things. So keep an eye out for those later. And the very next post. This is how Republicans normally rig elections ahead of time. North Carolina Republicans just took gerrymandering to a whole new level. But the very next post is about gerrymandering. It's the same thing. But he doesn't want to consider that because he needs to attack Democrats too, because he's Cenk Younger, and of course he has to attack Democrats. Now, look, I'm fine with him. Dianne Feinstein should have resigned. Absolutely, Dianne Feinstein should have resigned. I have no problem with that one. The exception proves the rule. Aquatic FPV. Should children be allowed to vote? Should children be allowed to vote? It's an interesting question. I believe, and here's the thing that conservatives sort of have a problem with. I don't have a problem, like the right to vote is guaranteed for 18-year-olds. But I don't think that necessarily means that the right to vote is restricted to 18-year-olds. Let's pull that up. Constitution, right to vote, 18. Overview of the 26th Amendment. Reduction of voting. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. So the Constitution there is saying that if you're 18 or older, you cannot be denied the right to vote because of age. Period. It doesn't say you can't vote if you're under 18. Now, it doesn't say that states can't prohibit you from voting. So it does say states can't prohibit you from voting if you're 18 or older, if you're a citizen, right? If you're a citizen, that's the wording. Should be the wording. That's one of the places that it says citizens. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on any kind of age. Right. It can be abridged or denied because of other things like felony status or what have you. Being in jail or whatever. But so there's no prohibition by the Constitution of allowing people under 18 to vote. So the ability, so then because there's no prohibition of 18-year-olds, of people under 18 to vote, that would then fall to the states. So if a state then doesn't specifically prohibit people under 18 from voting, then I would guess a municipality or a local smaller government would then be able to then allow people younger than 18 to vote if they so choose. So to me, it's not my decision to make whether or not a 16-year-old should be able to vote or not. If a state were to decide and say, let's say they say 16-year-olds can drive, we want 16-year-olds to be able to vote as well. And if the legislature decided that 16-year-olds should be able to vote, sure, why not? Maybe a state decides that anybody who is legally an adult should be able to vote. And let's say that includes anybody who is an emancipated minor. So if you are 16 years old and you successfully went to court and you are emancipated as a minor, and now you get to make decisions as those people should be able to vote. Sure, I think that's fine. But if a state decides to let the voting age of that state be 16, I have no problem with it because it's not something defined in the Constitution. That's a power that's given to the states or the people. The people decide if there's nothing prohibiting it in the state constitution or state laws, and a smaller municipality says, hey, on municipality issues we want to allow 16-year-olds to vote, I have no problem with it, because again, the people are saying we want them to be able to have a say. Aquatic, that's not how you read. I mean, we can read it again. I mean, if that's not how you read, let's. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on the account of age. So, if you're a citizen of the United States and you're 18 years of age or older, you cannot be denied the right to vote because of age. It doesn't say only 18-year-olds or older can vote. It just says if you're 18 years old or older, so the state can't then say you're 20, you can't vote, because the Constitution strictly prohibits the states from saying that. So like normally before the 26th Amendment, a state could say you're 20, you can't vote, because it would then be a power that was not denied to it from the Constitution, and as such, it would be a power that it gets via the 10th Amendment. But now, because we have the 26th Amendment, the states are denied that power to deny a 20-year-old to vote. State can't deny an 18-year-old the right to vote, but state can deny a 17-year-old the right to vote. Why? Because it's not covered. That's not covered by this amendment. So the state can then say, 17-year-olds, you don't get to vote, if they want to. But a state could then say also, we want to allow 17-year-olds to vote. Phil, yes, that is true. Illinois and other states allow 17-year-olds to vote in primaries if they will be 18 at the time of general election. That is correct. Yes, there are many Republican states that do allow for child brides. And when they try and fix that, who opposes that? Republicans oppose that because they fear it's like going against their religion and stuff. Federal laws on voting for Congress age. Let's see if that comes up. Right to vote at 18. Is voting age a state or federal law? Okay. In 1970, Senator Ted Kennedy proposed amending the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to lower the age nationality. On June 22nd, 1970, President Richard Nixon signed an extension of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that required the voting age to be 18 in all federal, state, and local elections. In his statement on signing Nixon, despite my misgiving about the constitutionality of this one provision, I have signed the bill. I have directed the Attorney General to cooperate fully in extending a swift court test of the constitutionality of 18-year-old provision. Subsequently, Oregon and Texas challenged the law in court. The case came before the Supreme Court in 1970. By this time, 4 states had a minimum voting age below 21. Georgia, whatever. Let's see, what's the... But I don't know if that's stating that it had to be 18 or it had to be a minimum of 18 or it had to be or if it made that a floor or if it made that you know what I mean? I don't know if that made it an absolute floor or not. So Aquatic. Basically, if a 10-year-old can consent to gender therapy, they're adult. But see, I don't know what 10-year-old is getting. What kind of gender therapy is a 10-year-old getting? See, I don't know what 10-year-olds are getting gender therapy. Like, and I don't think a 10-year-old in and of themselves are able to get gender therapy. I think if a 10-year-old by themselves went to a doctor and said, I want gender therapy, the doctor would say, no, you need your parents' consent. You can't get it. A 10-year-old can't get it by themselves. And the only gender therapy that a young kid could get would be a hormone blocker or puberty blockers. And that would be once puberty starts onsetting. And while some people do start puberty at 10, some start later. And again, it would have to be with the full consent of the parents and the doctor as well. So... I mean, Aquatic has been... All right. Aquatic has been in the chat before. And Aquatic has been reasonable in the chat before. So, while I disagree with Aquatic on a lot of the things that Aquatic has said today, let's be a little kinder to Aquatic. Because this is not Aquatic's first time here. And... while this is, I think, the first time we're having disagreements, I think, as long as Aquatic is being, I guess, reasonable in the presentation of the beliefs, even if I disagree with said beliefs, let's be reasonable and kind with our presentation of our beliefs. Let's if that's the best way to put it, I should say. And I've missed some things in the chat, but I mean that's why we have Aaron, that's why we have Jolie, to also kind of put people in timeout or what have you, or to be referee, so to speak. So, but I think there's a difference between individual cases of people deciding whether or not specific medical treatments and therapies are needed or proper for an individual person, and whether or not somebody is old enough and mature enough to consent to whether or not they can cast a ballot or not. The decision, like, I think 16 is a line that a lot of times we draw because 16 is the voting age. A lot of the times 16 is some line that some people draw in some states when it comes to one of the consent lines, when it comes to like the age of consent for peers, not for adults, but for peers, if that makes sense. Like, I think when hey Laura, how's it going? Like, when I lived in Baltimore, when I was in Maryland, if I'm recalling this correctly, I mean, it was almost 30 years ago. I feel old now. 30 years ago, was it? Yeah. Ugh. No, not 30. Yeah. Ew. Yeah, because that was 94 when I graduated high school. That was 30 years ago. I'm depressed now. Gross. I need a drink. I see hormone therapy and puberty blockers are two different things, though. Aquatic. Hormone therapy is the starting of, like, if you're a trans man, that hormone therapy is like the starting of starting of testosterone, or as some people like to say, antihistamines, or estrogen if you're trans male, or if you're trans female, assigned male at birth. Puberty blockers are a different thing altogether. So, like, I do believe... See, Aquatic, you might be a master debater, but I'm a cunning linguist. Wait, I'm a cunning linguist. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. Tip your waitress. So... Actually, Aaron doesn't like the rim shot, but I don't think it's that bad. So... Anyway, when I lived in Maryland, if I'm recalling it correctly, the age of 16 was the age of consent, but it was at that point only 4 years difference. So, like, if you were 16 years old, you could consent, but it was only to people like 4 years older than you. So, like, a 16-year-old could consent to a 20-year-old. A 17-year-old could consent to a 21-year-old. A 15-year-old couldn't consent to anybody. Even if it was a 16-year-old, go figure. A 18-year-old could consent to anybody older. So it was kind of a Romeo and Juliet-ish type law. So I guess, so in Maryland, I guess 16 was like a start of ability to consent to some people, but not to everything. In Louisiana, it's a 17. But if for everybody, like if you're 17, you can consent to anybody older. But if you're under 17, it's 2 years difference. Unless you're under 13, then it's no way. So it's different in every state. The only reason I know the Louisiana one is because one of my fraternity members was constantly saying 17 is completely legal in the state of Louisiana. Anywho, so. Anyway, so back to the whole consenting to hormone therapy, puberty blockers, etc. Yeah. So if parents want to work together with a doctor and a kid to be able to determine whether or not puberty blockers are correct for them, I think that should be fine. I don't think that's necessarily a sign that the kid in question is at a point where they're ready to vote. But I think puberty blockers can be stopped, and when they stop, puberty stops being blocked, then you go on and you can continue with your puberty if you decide to get off of them. But then even then, I think when I think the Boston Clinic or even other clinics that are going to do bottom surgery, for example, if you're a trans woman and you want to get, you want to have whatever the procedure's called, I forget what it's called. I think it's a pull through or something where they use some of your parts and make it into other parts. Again, EvieWinners.com goes into it in more detail if you want to learn more about it. And she's talked about it twice on my podcast. If you want to listen to it, they're both great episodes. The second time I had Hal on, I had Hal and then Evie back-to-back episodes. It was 2 great weeks of my podcast back-to-back. And whatchamacallit. But I think even those clinics, once you turn 18, you still have to go through a year of hormones before they'll even consider doing the bottom surgery for you. And a lot of these conservatives that are complaining about the hormones, about like these trans procedures, and especially when it comes to the kids, like, all they care about is the money. They just care about the money and nothing else. It's all a big money grab at the expense of our children. I'm like, no, you dummy. It's not about money. Like, they're not going to just go after the kids and try and do invasive procedures on them just because they want to make a buck. Because the kids are going to come after them. They're going to sue their pants off. The kids are going to sue like crazy. They're going to sue everybody. It's ridiculous. So no, they're not. They're going to make sure that all of their I's are dotted and all of their T's are crossed. They're going to make sure that everything is done properly because they don't want to risk losing insurance. They don't want to risk, losing their licenses. They don't want to. They want to continue to make. Yes, doctors and hospitals and everybody want to make money, and they want to continue to make money. In order to do that, they have to maintain insurance. They have to maintain their licenses, etc. Good night, Benny. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Jeff Curry, my son's band did a show with 5 other bands covering famous bands. He just called me and said they were invited back to own music because female. That's awesome. Great. That's awesome news for your son. That's really cool. Good to hear. Yeah, Wes, I'm not taking your call if you're acting up like this. I mean, stop. I love you, man, but you gotta chill. Anywho, let's go back to. But yeah, back to the thing about voting. I believe it's purely up to the states. If a state wants to, as long as federally, I mean, if there's federal laws prohibiting under 18 from voting in federal elections, I don't know if that's the case. That wasn't necessarily clear. But then no, they can't vote in federal elections if the federal law prohibits it. But if the states want to make laws that allow for people under 18 to vote in the states, and the people vote, either they put it up for a referendum and the people say, yeah, go ahead, let 16-year-olds vote, cool. Then 16-year-olds should be able to vote. It's not necessarily up to me to say yay or nay. I can't necessarily decide how I would necessarily vote. I haven't really thought about it for that much of a time to determine whether or not I think it would necessarily be a good idea or not. I think there are arguments to be made on both sides of the issue. I think that there are a lot of issues that affect young people, and I mean, when I was 16, I think I was very mature for my age. I knew a lot of 16-year-olds that weren't very mature. I don't know how many 16-year-olds that weren't mature that would go vote. I think the 16-year-olds that were mature that would go vote, would go vote. Now, the other side of the coin is, would people just, drag their kids and say, you need to vote for this? And would it just allow disproportionality when it came to certain beliefs? Would people get disproportionate votes because of things? I don't know. It's hard to say. There's a lot of things that would have to be taken into account, I think, and there would be arguments to be made, maybe in particular states, maybe by particular players, in particular sides. I think you'd probably in different states would see different arguments by different sides. I think in certain states, maybe you would see Republicans back it, and other states you'd see Republicans be against it, because it would probably depend on what the demographics look like and whether or not it would harm them or help them. Maybe they would be like, oh, in this state, they'd be like, oh, it's going to hurt us, so therefore we're not going to support it. It's going to help us, so we'll support it. In this state, it's going to hurt us, so we're not going to support it. So that's one of the problems, is that a lot of the times it will be taken as a political thing instead of as a do they deserve it because they have the right to have their say. Like, when I think of the young people who might be affected by things like, Dobbs v. Jackson, but when I think of young people who are going to be affected by things like, in the future, like, Obergefell v. Hodges, when I think of people who might be affected by, even if there's an overturning of Lawrence v. Texas, like Clarence Thomas has suggested in his concurrence with Dobbs, those are at risk, and maybe those people should have a right to be heard on those issues. When Candace Owens put it out there and said, what good came of allowing women to have the right to vote? I looked it up. I looked up the benefits of women's suffrage, above and beyond just the fact that women should have their voices heard in the political sphere. One of the initial benefits of having women's suffrage, again, was the infant mortality rates. Like, infant mortality dropped. More infants survived because at the time, you had a situation where more, obviously in a patriarchal society, men worked, women stayed at home. So the women, were more than likely the people who were going to be taking care of the kids. So they were the ones who had to deal with the fact that, okay, well, here are the kids that are sick and here are the kids that are dying. We need X, Y, and Z to help the kids stay alive. We need, better information on how, and better cleanliness programs. And we need all these other programs to help the kids be safer and be healthier, be cleaner. And they advocated for those things. And now, because they were voters, the politicians had to listen to them. And because the politicians listened to them, they passed these programs. And the kids got healthier and stopped dying as frequently. So, because you had to listen to them, guess what? Stuff happened. So maybe if you had to listen to the 16-year-olds and the 17-year-olds, maybe you could get action on gun control. Maybe you could get action on protecting these schools. Maybe you could get action on making sure that, you have less gun violence in these hallways and that these kids don't have to go cowering in terror the next time a school shooter comes around and starts murdering people. Maybe that would be a good result of allowing 16-year-olds to cast a ballot. Maybe. Just something to think about. I don't know. Tim, wait to see the platforms geared towards 16-year-olds in places 16 to drink. Well, that's the other thing. Like, maybe they don't. I mean, they might suggest 16 to drink, but I don't know if that'll pass, because you might have all the 18s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 16-year-olds going, hell no. They'll be going, absolutely, positively not, because I remember being 16 and I cannot be trusted with a beer, let alone anything else. So no. Now, to me, if you're gonna, my opinion is that if you can serve your country in the military, if you're old enough to die for your country, you should be able to drink. So I think the drinking age should be 18, but it's not. It should be, but it's not. And because it's not,
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. I should make that. I have room for one little sound on here that is not specified for anything. It just says custom sound. So I need to make, instead of having to search for that button all the time, I need to make this button that button, so I can just hit that button all the time and just be like, here we go, boom, there's the button, and I'll never have to search for it again. So there you go. But I have all these other ones that I could use, and you know, I'll eventually have to use them eventually, but we'll see. We'll see when they get used. I don't know. Maybe you can get a 16-year-old to vote so they can carry an AK. Ooh, can you imagine? An armed school, an armed, what would you call it? An armed school population is a polite school population. Is that what the conservatives would argue? Let's see what else Cenk has to say, because we got way off topic for a way long time. Environmental justice funding off the table in the debt limit negotiations, as the source calls White House offering up to EJ funding and permitting changes to deal pathetic. Let's see. Environmental justice cuts are off the table in debt ceiling. Wait. Are they complaining? Wait, they're complaining that the environmental justice funding cuts are off the table? They're complaining. See, this is why they jumped the shark. These things were on the table. This is what people don't understand about negotiations, right? Like, you have things, like, you have things that you ask for, and you have things that, like, let's say I want a salary that's, you know, say I want to make $250,000 a year. Yeah, okay. I'm not, but let's say I want to make that amount of money a year. So I start with $300,000. I want to pay me $300,000 a year. I don't start with $250,000. I start with $300,000. And let's say I want to, you know, all these things that I want to do. Well, you know, I'll give up this, or I'll give up this, or whatever. So I put things on the table that I'm going to say, okay, well, I'll give up this, I'll give up this. Like, I'll remove things off the table as negotiation tactics. This is how negotiations work. Like, they don't understand these things. They don't understand how these things work. It's just, oh God, woke is trending. Oh geez Louise, why is woke trending now? At least it's not Jewish things trending. Let's see. When your political ideology forces you to buy from foreign companies because all the American companies have gone woke, maybe you just hate America. Yep. Another asinine move by Oklahoma Republicans. They're banning woke banks, and it's already costing taxpayers. Oklahoma's treasurer announced Bank of America was no longer allowed to do business with government entities in the state. The bank was one of the 13 deemed to be woke. Let's see. Title I is the largest federal aid program for public schools. The program in Title I... That's not even... I don't know. That doesn't even say woke. We have no choice but to wage a war on woke. This is exactly how fascists talks. This is an expert on fascism. I don't use the term for many people, but DeSantis proves its relevance with his own words every day. The DeSantis war room. The woke mind virus is basically a form of cultural Marxism. It's an attack on truth because it's a war on truth, and I think we have no choice but to wage a war on woke. This is why I don't understand, though, Aquatic, why both sides need to make concessions. But that's the thing. Both sides need to make concessions, but when you start off with doing a negotiation, you start off with things that you're going to make concessions on. That's one of the reasons why I don't understand why you think DeSantis would be a fresh breath of fresh air. I still don't see it. There's no way. I don't think there's any way I will see it, but I don't see it. Let's see. Cenk Younger. Today, Cenk Younger and Ana Kasparian on their podcast, The Younger, and the goal of progressive politics. You won't be able to hear this on Blog Talk. Let's see what they have to say.
Is Cenk Younger and Ana Kasparian. Cenk is the TYT founder and host of the Young Turks.
Let's see what they have to say.
Ana is the executive producer and host of the Young Turks. Welcome to both of you.
So if you're on hold, you can't hear it. Sorry.
Thank you for having us.
So Cenk, let me start with you. You started the network, TYT. Tell us about that. Why did you start it and when?
So we started it 21 years ago. We're actually the longest running show in internet history. We're also the first ever YouTube partner. So I guess we're the original YouTubers.
They're OGs.
We have survived the digital news media business, which is a hell of a thing. And the reason that we started it is because there was no voice for progressives on air. And by the way, 21 years later, as far as mainstream media goes, still there's no voice for progressives on air. And so that's why we got so large, because everybody that watched it thought, oh, thank God, finally someone is saying what I think.
Oh, thank God.
And honestly, about 2/3 of the country think what we think. And so that's why we started it. There was an absolute need for it. That's why it grew to be so large. And by the way, the important thing to understand is that we do honest news reporting. Okay, the perspective comes second, the reporting comes first.
And the name The Young Turks, Cenk, where does that come from?
So it means young rebels, and in fact, oftentimes young progressives looking to overthrow an established system. And 21 years ago, I was a young progressive. Along with my co-host, Ben Mankiewicz, my co-founder, Dave Kohler, we thought that sounds just about right for us.
And Ana, Cenk used the term progressives a lot. How do you define progressives, and is there a clear leader right now for progressives in the country?
Well, I think the second question is much easier to answer, and I would say at the moment, no. I feel that, there was a progressive leader in Bernie Sanders, but he has now, really thrown his full support behind President Joe Biden and has kind of gone along with Biden's agenda while I think trying to influence it to some extent. But when I think,
because that's what you do.
What I tend to think of is
economic
and social.
That's what you do, Ana. You try and get your voice heard as when you try and get elected, but when you can't get elected because you don't do what you need to do to get elected, because you ignore the southern states, you then try and work with the person and try and inject your ideals into there and try and get some of the stuff that you wanted to get done, which is something that he did.
Justice, meaning, not necessarily equity, which is what unfortunately has been associated with the progressive label as of lately. Like, that's something that keeps coming up, but equality of opportunity, ensuring that people have the opportunity to actually move up the economic ladder, provide for themselves and their families, and really thrive in the country. And I do think that there was an era when the American dream was very much real, and if anyone wanted to, put their work behind achieving the American dream, those opportunities were available. Progressives want to bring those opportunities back, and
but that's not what I see Cenk and Ana doing. I see them just attacking Biden, and they attack Republicans too, but they're attacking everybody, and they're not actually trying to actually do anything. I mean, maybe the Young Turks channel does. Let's see if we can open the Young Turks channel. Maybe they have more, stuff. We'll open that up and look at that for a bit, but they're just busy attacking Biden. Oh, okay, we'll attack Republicans too, because we don't want everybody to think that we're just siding with Republicans, but
they're just about the only ones in the country who want to do so, as far as I've seen in recent years.
Yeah, okay, Ana, whatever. Let's see. The fact that no national reporter is discussing the possibility, not a fact, but the possibility that Biden wants to make the same cuts as Republicans and that he has offered the same kind of cuts every time throughout his career is journalistic malpractice. They refuse to write the obvious explanation. Ooh, wait. I think that was the perfect sound for that one. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, the possibility. I mean, what's the probability that he wants to put the same cuts? There's no probability that he wants to put the same cuts. It's not probable. It's not even plausible. Is there a possibility? I mean, I go 0.01%, maybe. No, because he doesn't want to do that. Biden wants a clean bill, just like they gave Trump. But he's so wanting to paint Joe Biden to be a Republican. But because I don't know why. Like, I mean, what does he think it's going to do? You're not going to get a different Democratic candidate unless for some reason Biden feels like he needs to step away for health reasons or what have you. You're not going to get a different Democratic candidate. The person who's running as the Democratic candidate is the person who's the incumbent president. I mean, that's going to happen. And the only thing that you do by challenging the Democratic incumbent is making it more likely that the Republican wins. What happened in 79, 80? Ted Kennedy challenged Carter. Kennedy made a big challenge. Carter lost. Simple as that. Biden could easily use the 14th Amendment to lift the debt ceiling. Even without it, he could easily put the weight of the responsibility of the crashing economy on Republicans, but he's choosing to not to because he agrees with them in policy. He's always been a conservative. No, yeah, Biden could. I agree that the 14th Amendment makes the debt limit idea silly. Like, I think the idea of a debt limit is unconstitutional, right? I just realized that, like, half of my face is hidden by my little logo thing. Maybe I should move my picture over a smidge. Why didn't anybody warn me about that? Let's move that over a smidge so I'm not, like, being hidden by this little thing. I don't think that the debt limit is constitutional because of the 14th Amendment. I'll be clear about that. And yes, he can put the weight of the responsibility crashing in the economy on the Republicans. And he specifically has stated that already. But you know who's the responsibility? You know what's journalistic malpractice? It's journalists not putting the responsibility of the crashing economy on the Republicans who refuse to give Biden a clean debt ceiling increase. And it's journalistic malpractice on your part to put the responsibility of this on Biden because, like, you know, Tim Scott, who failed his civics class, as he said in 9th grade, as you heard in headlines, who is responsible for passing a debt ceiling bill? It's Congress. If Congress can't pass, if both houses of Congress can't pass a debt ceiling bill, then Biden has nothing to sign. The Democrats in the Senate and the Republicans in the House can't come together and find something that's signable. Guess what? Biden can't sign anything. That's how civics works. I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. Schoolhouse Rock, anybody? Have you watched it? No? I guess not, Cenk. But yeah, Biden has been more conservative. I think he's always been a centrist in the Democratic Party. He's always been more to the center. I think he's moved to the left as the party has moved to the left. He's more to the right than me. But he's not McCarthy. He's the one who pushed Obama to the left on gay marriage. Like, Come on, man. But no. Cenk has to be disingenuous again because he just has to attack Biden again and again and again and again and again. Freedom Caucus members warned on debt talks. Anything less than House bill we're not going to accept, Ralph Norman says. On compromising with White House, why would we? We have a winning hand. The Senate needs to pass the House's bill. Any deal would need D votes. He's not wrong. Even though they have no hand to play at all, they still have all the leverage because Biden is the weakest president ever. Again, there's nothing to say that there's... On what basis does he say that Biden is the weakest president ever? He created more jobs in 2 years than any president did in 4. Like, he's led a robust comeback. He's Dark Brandon, for frick's sake. Like, the idea that he's the... I don't understand what measure. Like, I'm sitting here, like, right-clicking and opening a new tab. All of these things that he's never going to respond to. But, like, on what measure is he basing this idea? He is going to give them almost everything that they want. And I'm wondering when he doesn't, I'm going to be like, this tweet didn't age well. We'll see what happens as the debt ceiling looms. Here we go. Conservatives thinking that the government is targeting them is hilarious. Who? Democrats are incredibly weak. Government has always been on the side of the right wing, always. Just because you have to follow the law now, just like the rest of us, doesn't make you a special victim. There you go. Democrats are weak. Got to attack the Democrats again. Blah, blah, blah. In fact, no one knows what Biden will do. Has he made a decision? No, I have faith in Biden over this. He's letting the Republicans self-destruct. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Biden's State of the Union speech was genius, and, like, he handled them great on the fly. Like, it was perfect. All Biden has to do is sign an executive order to exercise the 14th, and he can do that at the last minute. And he can prepare behind the scenes without any of us having to know. He doesn't have to show that hand. It's poker. It's like the politics of poker. He could just sit here and plot everything to handle and get ready for a 14th Amendment solution in the background. Or any other solution. He could plan the platinum coin deal, where they mint a $2 billion or $1 billion platinum coin and just deposit it in the treasury and go, here you go, platinum coins. That's awesome, Bill P. That you work with Steve Perry in the studio. That's sweet. Like O'Sherry time or after O'Sherry? Aquatic, I don't see how people can see that there is evil on both sides. There are bad people on both sides, yes, but that's the whole kind of thing where it's like, you know, the left wants to, like, protect trans people and gay people and want to protect abortion rights and everything, and the right wants to, put, Muslims in camps and scapegoat entire religions and vilify trans folk and gay people and call drag queens groomers, and, like, there's a huge difference between, like, what bad actors on the left do and bad actors on the right do. Like, it's not the same. Investigation. Amid derailments, the Biden admin quietly approves permits to let the financial firm run oil trains through accident-prone canyon among 40 million Americans. This is why I call them corporate Democrats. They'll do anything for their corporate donors. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of letting trains run through an accident-prone area, and we've had the train issues, clearly. But, like, again, Attack Democrats, attack Democrats, attack Democrats, attack Democrats. It's like you could set your watch by it. Let's see. Let's keep on scrolling, keep on scrolling. I don't even want to deal with that one. Biden said he wouldn't negotiate on a debt ceiling, then he did. He said he wouldn't give in to work requirements, and I was giving in on that. I mean, he hasn't yet. Has he given in to work requirements? I haven't seen any evidence that he has. I mean, they're talking about all sorts of things. Then Republicans laughed in his face how weak he is, and he's the weakest man in America. Again, I think Cenk Younger wants Donald Trump to be president. It's as simple as that. It is better for the Young Turks to have Donald Trump as president. Because when Donald Trump is president, he can then say how useless and feckless the Democrats are, and how you need, how we need to have people like him and other progressives to take over. And then he can have more material to talk about and blog about and tweet about and make videos about, etc. Like, I think it's like the whole thing about that people used to say, that people used to believe that the Republicans didn't really want to overturn Roe v. Wade because they were better off using Roe v. Wade as a fundraising tool, and using it as a boogeyman that they're going to constantly fight, instead of having it actually be something that they're going to actually be successful about. Of course, they actually ended up doing it, because I guess they didn't actually expect Donald Trump to get it done. Probably the one successful thing that Donald Trump has ever done in his life. But, no, Cenk just, I think he wants Biden to lose. I think he wants Trump to win. I think he'd be happy with a Republican presidency. It just seems like he wants that. He doesn't want a Democrat in office. It's as simple as that. Wes, I know you're on the line. I don't think I'm going to have time to get to you, Wes, because I'm probably, after I'm done with this, I'm probably just going to hang up or end the show and go to whatever. I told you not to call, because I told you that I probably wasn't going to get to you. I'm sorry. Here's the usual pattern. Democrats will say Biden will not cave to Republicans. I'll say he definitely will. They'll say I'm an outrageous radical who's smearing Biden. Biden will cave to Republicans. Then we'll say it's okay because he had to. I've never said that Biden won't cave to the Republicans. I mean, I never knew what he was going to do, because, he'll have to come. I think it's ridiculous that the Republicans won't give him a clean bill like they gave Trump several clean bills. I think Biden will do what he believes is the best for the country. If that includes negotiating, that will include negotiating. I think that Cenk will call it caving. I don't believe it will be accurately called caving. I think what Biden's negotiation will be called caving to the Republicans, regardless of whether or not it's actually caving or not. And whether or not it's caving completely or not. Again, here's another tweet to respond to. And then Cenk will claim victory, because he'll say that, see, I was right, he caved, when in reality it'll probably be a bigger victory for the American public for what it did, for what it was able to get done, and what it was able to knock out of the bill in order to get the American economy back on track. And will we be happy with anything that if it wasn't a clean bill, will we be happy? Probably not. Will Republicans be less happy? Probably so. Because I give Biden much more credit than he does. And I don't believe that Biden is going to give the Republicans most of what they want. I think he might give them some. I think he's going to whittle out a lot of it. I think he might be able to get some additional things that he wants. And I think Cenk is just going to continue to be Cenk as long as possible until, until October, when he then finally gets on board and says, well, I guess we all have to vote for Biden now because Biden's the nominee and we all have to just suck it up and vote for him. But at that point, he'll have alienated the 66% of the nation that apparently supports the Young Turks, as he claims in that video that we watched. What? 66% supports the Young Turks? What? Maybe he was high. I don't know. I mean, maybe where he lives recreational marijuana or is legal, or maybe where he lives he was doing some of the medicinal stuff. I don't know. Maybe who knows? So Vice declared bankruptcy. I'm wondering if wonder if that includes the TV channel, if we're not going to be able to see that TV series that they're coming out with anymore, because that was a TV series that was coming out on Vice that I really wanted to see. All right, let's look at the Young Turks real quick, the Young Turks page, to see if there's anything different on there. Let's see, the price is the same. Pinned tweet, retweeting Nina Turner. It's even more over than previously thought. What? I don't know what that means. Dem show caving. Some picture. DeSantis announces. Attacking Hillary. American birds are under siege. Okay. Sure, Biden's responsible for it somehow. Phil Stone, GOP lawyers, voters, and Trump's lawyers are the same. They all think they are special. The lawyers think they're too smart to need lawyers. The rest think that it'll be someone else's loved one who dies exactly. Let's see. I missed. Wait, I need to scroll back because I missed the answer that I asked the question about O'Sherry. Let's see. Wait, Steve is your cousin? Wow. That's cool. Can you get him on Liberal Dan Radio? I'd love to interview him. But that's cool. Funny story is for some reason, I remember we were trying to think of somebody. What is the song? It was Into the Night by Benny Mardones, and for some reason, for the longest time, I used to think that was Steve Perry as well, because it sounds very similar. He sounds very similar to Steve because he has a very similar range and a kind of a very similar sound too. We used to always think that was Steve Perry, but it's not, because I remember in class and the teacher was trying to remember who it was or whatever, and I was like, is that Steve Perry? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then who is it? I don't know. Well, then how do you know it's not Steve Perry? Because I know. Okay. Let's see. I work with ELO, Night Ranger, Starship, the Bee Gees, Santana. That's awesome. Like Santana, like back in the day Santana, like, oh yeah, como va. Or Santana, like when he worked with like Rob Thomas and like the other folks, like the newer stuff. I had a chance to see Kansas when I was a freshman in college, and I'm pissed at myself for having not gone. Like one of my floor mates wanted to go, and I don't know why we didn't go, but for some reason we didn't go. Yeah, Bill, I've tried to. I used to listen to Young Turks a little bit, and I used to think they were okay, but it's just like, it used to be the proud. Used to be proud something, and now he's like proud socialist or something. I just got to the point where I started calling the bunch of them a bunch of whiny little shits. Bill P, I can't get him to answer the phone. He's back on the road. Well, that's awesome. Yes, Benny Mardones does have some pipes, as does Steve. Stop with the witch, Wes. Stop it. Woodstock Santana. Wow, that's really awesome. It used to be one of Oya Kama Va used to be my ringtone. Like I used to love the ringtone. I used to love that. The beginning of it used to be my ringtone for a while on my phone. So now it's for a long time now it's been Man in a Box. So for some reason my new phone won't let it be the beginning. Like I have the entire song as on my phone, but for some reason my new phone wants to make it the middle of the song and not the beginning. And I'm like annoyed because it's a great beginning song to be like a ringtone. It's like dun 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 dun. And then my text message ring does start at the beginning. It's the beginning of Tom Sawyer. So you hear that modern day warrior, mean stride. And then my my alarm that I wake up to is the Green Day and U2 song, The Saints Are Coming. Good night, Aquatic. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. I know we disagreed on a bunch of stuff, but you know, it happens. If you've ever heard that song, especially the one when the Superdome opened back up after Katrina and they performed, that was an amazing performance. They had like the Rebirth Brass Band performing with them, and it was just sent chills down your spine because it was just like, it was like everyone had just come back and it was the first like real big thing going on in New Orleans, and it was just like, it was right before that opening. That just game was, we were playing the Falcons, our rivals, like one of the first opening plays of the drive for Atlanta. Like we made the Falcons go like 3 and out, and then we blocked the punt and scored a touchdown, and it was just Steve Gleason blocked the punt. And that was a great story in and of itself because Steve Gleason now has ALS and he's like in a wheelchair, and he has to use like the computer stuff to talk because he's that far along with the Lou Gehrig's disease, but like he's like a hometown hero for that. Like he's known for that now, and like everybody's on Team Gleason because of that. But like if you've heard the song "The Saints Are Coming" by U2 and Green Day, like if you hear it, like it starts off like a very low, like a, and then it just gets a little bit louder and a little bit louder and and then like it just slowly gets a little bit faster and a little bit louder. And then if you haven't woken up yet, with like after like about like maybe about like 10, 15, 20 seconds or so ish about into the beginning of the song, like the drums are, it's a great alarm. It's like the perfect alarm to be on your phone. It's great. So it's like the perfect set of ringtones that I have, except for the fact that I can't get the one to work right on, and you'd think I'd be able to figure it out. It's kind of like how for a while I couldn't get the Liberal Dan. I couldn't get Liberal Dan to work to load the pages properly, because I guess we're off topic again, but like one of the things, WordPress is nice because it's easy. It's very easy to set up. You throw it up there. You take somebody's template, you put it out there, you write some posts, boom, you're done. It doesn't require a lot of skill. But the problem with these things that don't require a lot of skill is that when there's a problem, it's hard to fix because they've hidden all the stuff deep down and it's buried. So you can't, it's really hard to fix. So you have to rely on a lot of other stuff. So I eventually found a debugger thing to put in the code. So basically whenever I loaded the page, it would like show all of the errors that on the page itself. So I finally was able to figure out what the hell was throwing an error, figure out what the problem was. I got rid of the plugin that was throwing the error, and it fixed all my problems. So I was like, thank goodness, because I'm a software developer. I should not be having a website that's this buggy. And I figured it out. It's a real big. I left the music business when I met my wife. That's fair. Although, you know. So what did you end up, Bill, what did you end up doing after you left the music business? Like what career did you go into after you know, you left the music business? Let's see. After I turned 65, I sleep through everything on a day. It has me when I'm 64, which has me laughing because for my birthday on Saturday, we did karaoke. And as part of karaoke, not a lot of people showed up. I think partially because there was graduations all weekend, so maybe some people had to go to some graduation things. I don't know. So we were doing karaoke, and one of the songs that I did was Richard Cheese's version of My Neck, My Back, which is very humorous. Oh, that's right. You thought theology. I remember now. But one of the other things that I did was I wrote a parody, a naughty parody to When I'm 64. So I brought up the music, the karaoke version of When I'm 64 on the TV, but I pulled up my lyrics for When I'm 64 on my Google Keep, and I sung my version of it, which is When We 69, and it was very dirty, but people got a good chuckle. The people who were there got a good chuckle. When I hit 90, I'm going to try meth. I mean, meth screws up your teeth, and I guess by the time you're 90, you might not have your teeth. You might have your dentures in, so it's probably a good time to try it. So, hey, Cynthia, what's up? I don't know if I missed you coming in. Welcome back, Andrea. Hey, Zach, what's going on? Let's see. What else? I also did Music of the Night for the first time. And even though I hit one of the notes in the car, one of the higher notes in the car, fine, I did not hit it fine in the little room. And I think the reason why I didn't hit it fine in the room is because it was such a little room that I didn't want to hurt people's ears. So like I backed off of it a bit, and my backing off of it a bit made me go, and it wasn't good. But for the rest of it, both my wife and our mutual friend, her friend from college, one of my son's godmothers, both said I did well with it. So, and it was the first time doing it. So I was, I think they were a little bit impressed with the fact that I did that song for the first time and that it sounded as good as it did. So anyway, I don't know. I think I'm done bashing Cenk for the moment. So, and I probably want to get a couple of these videos uploaded and made by the time and before I go to bed. And tomorrow, why is Drew Brees trending? That's interesting. Let's see why that's happening. Because Drew Brees really threw 7 touchdowns in a game, and it still took a last-second field goal to win. Yes, I remember that. I remember the fact that happened. But I remember that happened, but I wasn't watching the game because I was in Disney World when it happened, and I was watching. I think when the field goal happened, I was on the monorail leaving the Magic Kingdom. Oh yeah, top 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time according to Patrick Mahomes: Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Montana, not Montana, but Motana, and Dan Marino or John Elway. No Drew Brees. Hilarious. Why are they saying Montana? They can't spell Montana right. If you can't spell Montana right, you shouldn't even include it on there. Hilarious. Congratulations yourself. Cenk is real. He just got overcommed. Okay. That's why I can't stand Russell Jiffy Lube hair brand. That's when I was watching the horrible remake of Arthur. Well, I guess since we're off the topic or whatever, I guess let me go ahead and just say hi. Hi, Wes.
Hilarious.
Hello. You there, Wes?
Congratulations, Cenk is real. He just got overcome.
Hello. I'm just hearing me.
Brand. That's why I was watching the horrible remake of Arthur.
Let's get to me around. Let's see if Wes hears that. I'm getting to him.
I guess since we're off the topic or whatever, I guess let me go ahead and just say hi.
Wes.
Hi, Wes.
Hello.
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay. Hello.
Here.
What's going on, Wes?
I'm here.
All right.
I'm here.
Turn off the turn off the YouTube audio and talk to me regularly.
I think it must be the volume.
There you go.
I don't have any headset on, and it is Bluetooth takeover.
Ah, okay.
Like Zucker bots.
Okay. So what's going on, Wes? How are you doing?
I don't believe in them, I know. And I can't hear this, but I see you smiling, so I think maybe you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well...
I'm in prison for the next 3 months.
Why?
No. Wait a minute.
Let's see, I'll have to type. Why are you in prison?
I'm trying to turn up my volume on the computer without making this a whole big thing. And I can't hear this. But I see you smiling, so I think maybe you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well...
I'm in prison for the next 3 months.
Why?
No. Wait a minute.
So I'll have to type. Why are you in prison?
I'm trying to turn up my volume on the computer without making this a whole big
All right,
thing.
Wes, I'm gonna have to let you go. So this because this is not. I'm gonna have to put you back on mute, Wes. So anyway, because we can't do it that way. It's just not gonna work. So sorry, Wes. Got to hang up. Let's see. I had to mute you, Wes. That wasn't working. Anyway, one thing I did want to bring up that I forgot to bring up during the whole Cenk Younger thing was the fact that the problem with the Cenk Younger types is this. Is that, like, they don't want you to pander. They always want you to pander out to them. They always want you to go as to be progressive every time, everywhere, every place. Would I love if that was possible? Abso-frickin-lutely. I would absolutely love to be able to pass progressive policies, to be able to run progressive platforms Every single place in America. Is it possible? No, it's not possible. That's why I want to run. You need to run as left as possible where you can, but in some places that's not progressive. In some places that's just as what they would refer to as liberal. In some places they would call it's centrist. In some places that's even just like moderate or whatever. Case in point, Jacksonville, Florida. How did a Democrat run and win in Jacksonville against all odds, with more Republicans in Jacksonville than Democrats? Because the Democratic candidate ran and reached out to the independents. The Democrat ran and reached out to the independents, who in this particular area, now not all independents are the same, and that's a big mistake that a lot of people make, especially the extremists, especially like the people like the Cenk Younger types, who will be like, well, they reached out to the independents. Well, independents could be far left, could be far right, could be centrists, could be just people registered to a party, but hovering around Democrat Republican, like hovering around, like it could be, the independents could be all across the spectrum. You don't know. But in this particular case, a lot of the independent folks are true centrists. And this candidate who won, she won the position of mayor in the city of Jacksonville, Florida, against the DeSantis endorsed Republican candidate, because she embraced the centrists. She ran to attract the centrists. And this must have, I can't imagine that Cenk liked this. Let's see if I can find, let's see what Cenk. Let's see if I can spell it right. Jacksonville mayor. Let's see if I can find something about that. Let's see, I pulled up just his profile, but I'm not seeing it. Nope. Can't find any results for Cenk Younger Jacksonville mayor. Who'd have thunk it? Not surprised. Why? Because it doesn't help his narrative. It doesn't help the narrative of the Young Turks to praise a victory of a Democrat who won being a centrist. Why? Because that doesn't help his cause. Because he doesn't want to highlight and show and shine Democrats being successful by pandering and not pandering to, but by campaigning to and embracing centrists, because then that tells you, oh, well, in some areas you actually have to run to centrists. You actually have to embrace the centrists. You actually can't be that far to the left in every part of the country. You have to understand the electorate that you're talking to and identify with them. Haha. That's how politics works. And it doesn't do the Young Turks any good to acknowledge that. It doesn't do the Young Turks any good to point that out and say, hey, good job, you. Good job for doing that. Let's just check one more thing. Democrat wins Jacksonville mayor. Donna Deegan. So then let's look up Donna Deegan, Cenk. Do. Let's just see. Let's do it this way. I think I could do it easier on my phone. I think the phone, for some reason, makes it easier to... I can go to his profile on my phone, and then I can look up Deegan on my phone and find there's no mention of Donna Deegan on his profile whatsoever. Let's look up Anna Kasparian and look up her profile. Anna Kasparian, Deegan. No results for Anna Kasparian and Deegan. Shocker. Let's look up the Young Turks. The Young Turks. Let's look up Deegan on the Young Turks. Maybe they'll have something on it. No results for the Young Turks and Deegan. Maybe that should be a fat man rant right there. Maybe that should be something that I rant about. The fact that you can't find anything about the fact that Donna Deegan won the Jacksonville mayor's election anywhere on the Twitter feed of the Young Turks. And why is that? Because it doesn't help them with their narrative. It doesn't help them with the idea that, hey, maybe, just maybe, you can't win all over the place being progressive out there to the left. Maybe you just can't do that. Maybe you have to be centrist sometimes. Maybe you have to, in order to beat the Republicans, you have to accept the fact that some places aren't going to be Young Turks types, and some places are going to be, Joe Biden types, and some places are going to be other Democrat types, and some places are going to be not as left as you, and that's okay. And you have to embrace that all, and that all of us, all of the people on the left, be they the Anna Kasparian and Cenk Younger types, be they the liberal Dan types and the Hal Sparks types, be they the Joe Biden types, be they the Donna Deegan types, the Hillary Clinton types, the every other type you could possibly think of. All of us have to stand up and stand together and stand against the Donald Trump types and the Ron DeSantis types and the Mitch McConnell types and all the other types that are out there who are trying to destroy this country. And the more that they try and fight the centrists and whatever, the more we're going to lose. And then in mid-November 2024, the Young Turks are going to be like, well, I don't understand why we lost. It's because the Democrats are weak. No. It's because y'all won't fight with the other people who are fighting the Republicans. Y'all won't stand with us until the very end. Y'all keep fighting against us, and you stab everyone else in the back, and then wonder why we're not standing anymore come election day. It's absurd. And I should have just recorded that as my fat man rant, but I should have just hit record, and or I'll just download the whole thing maybe, or I'll just make a new fat man rant or whatever, because, I'm sure I could just recreate that again, because hell, now that I know what I need to say, I'm a rant again. So maybe that's my fat man rant for today, because my other ideas, spoiler alert, my other fat man rants were going to be, here, if you don't want a spoiler, just, I want to tell you to stop watching now, but here's my other two upcoming fat man rants that are going to be. And I still have my other video that's on the back burner that I'm eventually going to work on when I have time. Two other fat man rants are police related. Actually, no, they're not even fat man rants. I think these are coming to terms with activism that I'm going to create. So they're not fat man rants. They're coming to terms with activism. Sorry. I misspoke. Not a lie, because I believed it to be a true statement, but I was actually misspeaking. It was coming to terms with activism is my next two projects that I was going to do, which was the terms that I want to talk about are A, defund the police, and B, ACAB. So, coming to terms, basically the whole idea of defund the police is the whole, and both of these will basically require everybody to go back and watch the first video, because there are two parts of the first video that are very important. A, The fact that everybody, hears a term and they want to define the term in their own terms instead of listening to the other people as to what they mean by the term. So when every time everybody hears defund the police, they think that you mean take away all funding from the police, and that's not what they mean in the most part. There are some extreme people who do believe in just abolishment of all policing, and as such, defunding the police to them means no police, so no funding for the police. But for the most part, it means removing some funding for the police and spending it in other places that are where it's better suited. Because another word for defund is withdrawal, and when you go to the bank and you make a withdrawal from the bank, you're not withdrawing all of your funds, usually. You're just withdrawing some of your funds. So defunding, withdrawal, same thing. So I'll go into more details about that as well. I should be able to do it off the cuff. I probably don't need a script on that one because I've been thinking about it for a while. And the other one is the ACAB, i.e. all cops are bastards, idea. And that's another one where I'm going to say, look, you need to go watch the first video again first before watching the all cops are bastards one, because you need to pay attention to what I say in that first video first, because I'm going to explain why people say that all cops are bastards. Because it's not, because they'll say, well, first you start off with, yeah, there are bad cops, and if, they'll say the few bad apples spoil the bunch, but it's not just a few bad apples, and start going into other reasons as to why, and add up that all, these people contribute to it, these people contribute to it, these people contribute to it, etc. But then I'll go into the reason why that I actually don't say all cops are bastards. I don't believe that all cops are bastards. And I'll go back to the first video. So remember in the first video, I say that when you listen to somebody, when you take the time, instead of having a gut reaction and reacting like, oh my God, blah, 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 banging away at your keyboard, and you say, I can't believe you said that, blah, 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 blah. And you take the time and you listen to the people and you try and understand what they mean when they say it, you might have a better understanding of why they believe the things that they do. And I agree with the people who say, with the reasoning behind why they say all cops are bastards. I agree with much of it, but I don't believe at the end. I don't agree with the end result. I don't say all cops. I believe that there are really good cops out there. I believe there are people that want to do the right thing. I don't believe they're empowered to do the right thing. And unless they're empowered to do the right thing, they can't do the right thing. And I'm not going to blame somebody for failing to do the right thing when they're not empowered to do the right thing. And until we empower them to do the right thing, I'm not going to call them a bastard for not doing the right thing. And I'll go into more detail on that in that video too. So that's the spoiler. That's the preview of those two videos. But I may very well have to make the fat man rant about the Young Turks and why they haven't mentioned Donna Deegan on Twitter, at least. Maybe I might have to do a little bit more of a search to see whether or not the Young Turks have, maybe see if the Young Turks have talked about her on YouTube or anywhere else on the web before doing this. And if I find it, maybe I won't do the fat man rant, because I don't want to have egg on my face or have to do a retraction or anything like that. Or maybe at the beginning of the video I have to say, at this point I can't find it, so if it is, I apologize, but here goes, or something like that. Reliability. Republicans mean stop investigating on my crimes, then they yell defund the police. Well, the Republicans have been saying defund the FBI all the time now. They're like, we need to abolish the FBI, we need to defund the FBI. When they say defund the FBI, they want to eliminate the FBI altogether, because they hate the FBI because the FBI is going after Trump voters. So now they know. They just hate the fact that the FBI is actually doing their job and going after traitors. So it feels some bad cops make everything worse for good cops, and bad cops want to conflate all cops. And the problem is that, and the problem with the bad cops is that it's not just like, the cops that, have a knee on the neck, or that shoot people too many times, or use excessive force or too early. It's the other cops that, help perpetuate it. It's like, it's like in the Catholic Church, when you have, it's not just the priest that molests the kids. That's the bad apple. It's also the other people in the priesthood, in the upper echelons, that help cover up the molestation, that move the priest to a different parish, giving the molesting priest fresh meat and a new place to hide. You know, the cops that, you know, when the ones that shot Laquan McDonald outside the Burger King, you know, they went and tried to confiscate all of the cameras. Not because they wanted to get evidence to go help convict this criminal cop for taking too many shots. They were trying to protect their friend. That's not a good cop. That's a bad cop. When they shot Tamir Rice, the official story was that they pulled up and they gave Tamir Rice a warning before firing the deadly shots. That was the official story until a camera proved otherwise. So whoever told that official story first was covering for the bad cop. Those are bad cops too. You have systems in policing. You have cops that have, I need to look up the name of this woman officer, but there was a woman officer that tried to report bad behavior on the part of a police officer in her department. She was let go for violating the whole thin blue line crap. That's why I say we're not empowering the good cops to stand up and do anything. So if we don't have their back, how can they act? That's my point. But, you know, and then you have also the other things, like, you know, you have the fact that I've been told by several police officers that there have been, you know, they are trained unofficially to say, stop reaching for my gun, to give themselves plausible deniability in a court, so that if they see the video, if they hear audio or see video where they can't see anything clearly, and if all they're hearing is the police officer saying, stop reaching for my gun, and they can't see any evidence that he is or isn't, they're going to believe that the person might have very well been reaching for the gun because there's no evidence otherwise. And as such, they're going to believe it and say, oh, well, you know, we believe that he was reaching for the gun because why else would he have said that? And as such, we're going to let him get off of this crime. We're going to let him get away with the shooting because, well, we're going to believe that the shooting was good. So, gonna have to disagree all day long, maybe not on cost, but they are all bad until they police each other. Well, that's what I mean. Like, the police have to police each other. I agree with you on that. There are systems within police departments. Every police officer takes an oath to a corrupt system. Kimchi. And look, every police officer takes an oath to a corrupt system. And that's bad. Like, I agree with almost everything that the all cops are bastards say. Like, everything up to the point where they say all cops are bastards. But the point where I diverge is the fact that the good cops that are there, the ones that are trying, that would try and do something, are not empowered to do anything. Because if they stand up and say something, if they stand up and turn in their fellow cops for doing things that are bad, they get punished. They get kicked off the force. They lose their jobs. They lose their livelihoods. They put in training to do all the, you know, they put in their training, they put in the work, they put in everything. They risk everything. We don't have their backs. We don't have the backs of the cops that want to do the right thing. And if we don't stand up and we don't tell them that we're going to have their backs, if we don't stand up and tell them you're protected, your job is protected, your career is protected, your salary is protected, that if you are let go, if you are fired for doing the right thing, that you're going to have a salary for the rest of your life for doing the right thing. If for some reason you lose your job as a cop, because we're going to reward you for doing the right thing, then how are they supposed to feel confident in standing up and trying to do the right thing? That's my point. That's my ultimate point. Is that if we don't enable them and empower them to stand up against that corrupt system, how are they supposed to do it by themselves? Look, and I don't believe they're a majority. I don't believe currently that they're a majority of the system at all. I think that the amount of people that will qualify as the quote good cops, I don't know what percentage they are. I don't think they represent a majority. I don't have any reason to believe that they represent a majority of the system at this point, because I don't see that they represent a majority of the system. They're definitely not definitely don't represent the power structure. That's for darn sure. Even if they do represent a majority of the people who are on the lower echelons, they don't represent the people who are in power. And so the people that are in power control everything. And the people that get, and as the people raise in power, they're not changing anything as new people get up there. So the people who are grazing up in the echelons are the people who are agreeing to continue and perpetuate the systems of corruption and the systems of bad actors and the systems that perpetuate the racism and oppression and corruption that continue throughout the years. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what that percentage of good cops would be, but I can't sit here and blame anybody who may very well be a good cop, and I can't point and say who they are, except for maybe the few that I do personally know and believe that they are, unless I see otherwise. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and assume that all cops are good until proven bad. I'm going to be questioning everyone. I'm going to question everyone until proven otherwise. That's a completely different subject. Like, if I were walking down the street and if the cop wanted to stop and ask me a question, I would be suspect all day long. I'm not going to sit here and just assume that the police officer has good intentions simply because I don't know whether or not. I'm not going to play Schrodinger's cop with that cop. I'm going to treat that cop as if that cop has bad intentions, period. Am I free to go, officer? Thank you. Bye. That's not part of this conversation. But I am going to assume that there's some number of police officers within that unit that is the Schrodinger's cat. Argumentative sake, there is some non-negative, non-zero number of police officers in whatever police units that exist in policing that do want to do the good thing, that can't do the good thing, the right thing, because they're not empowered to do so, and won't do the right thing until they're empowered to do so. And so we need to empower them to do so. And if we empower them to do so, and they still don't do it, then that would prove that would prove that we're wrong, and that I'm wrong, and that there are no good cops. And then at that point I would say it. At that point I would say a cab, because then at that point they would prove me wrong. But I guess I'm not as I don't know if pessimistic's the right word, but I'm not going to sit here and believe that every single one of them is willing, because I've seen examples of cops being kicked off the force for trying to do the right thing. So I know that some have existed. I've talked to some privately who have criticized actions of the police in other departments, who said, nope, that was wrong, that's a violation of procedure. But can they stand up against the bad actions of the ones in the police departments that they do serve in, wherever they do live? Maybe not. Why? Because they're not empowered to do so. So if you'll send distrust of cops, get some of them shot, which makes them that much more wary. I mean, that's also true, but I mean, I think it's the responsibility of police officers to establish trust. Like, there's a reason why Public Enemy sang that 911 is a joke. It's not because they're on the corner performing stand-up in the hood. It's because there is no reason for the people in that community, to trust that if they call 911, that they're going to be any safer than before if they didn't call 911. So whether or not they get up or get down, 911 is a joke in their town. Bill, my grandfather was a cop. He was as crooked as a dog hind leg. Nice. See, Kimchi, most cops I knew weren't crooked so much as they were loyal to every friend, especially the pretty ones. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is that the police, that thin blue line. I remember I took part in one of the local municipalities down here had a citizens police academy. I went through it, and one of the things that they had inside one of the rooms was the thin blue line, and it is stressing the importance of how the police officers had to all stand together. And, because they all had to trust each other. If you couldn't trust each other, who could you trust? But the community is supposed to be able to trust you, and if they can't trust you, then who are they supposed to trust? Right? Your job is supposed to be protecting and serving. Well, if you don't trust them to protect you, then what? What are you supposed to do? So Kimchi, my husband collected phones, guitars, bonsai, fruit trees, remote helis, and other junk. I don't know. I seem to be collecting a lot of junk recently. We need to do a massive purge in this house at some point, unfortunately. For those of us who haven't been here since earlier, I do want to play the two clips that I played earlier. The first part of the political ad that was played for one of the gubernatorial candidates here in Louisiana.
Crime is out of control. Louisiana's education system failing our kids, and our economy one of the worst. We need a new direction. We need Jeff Landry as governor.
And just like with the whole thing when I was listening to the January 6th commission, whatever, the hearings about January 6th, they were talking about the peace circle, but they kept on saying peace circle, so it sounded like they were saying P circle. When he says new direction and says it very close together, it sounds like he's saying nude erection. So we need a nude erection.
We need a new direction.
So yes, we need a nude erection here in Louisiana. Support nude erections. Support Jeff Landry for a nude erection. And you won't hear anything else. You won't hear it differently anymore. Nude erections. Here on Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Ding ding, indeed. So. Oh wait, Aaron's back. Let's give Aaron my horn. Let's give Aaron her horn again. Sorry. Sorry. I have my new toy. So, West Webb, my grandpa was a deputy sheriff's association. So I guess your grandpa wasn't shot. Only the sheriff was. So your grandpa didn't get shot because they shot the sheriff, but not the deputy. I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy. Oh no. So sorry. I still haven't played all of the all of the fun noises that I can play on my new whatchamacallit. I still don't even know how to do everything that there is to do on here. Like there's a voiceover thing, I can mute everything, I guess, that's coming into it. I don't have any input that's coming into it as well. I can have multiple input sources coming in. Maybe that could be the way that I do some things. I don't know. Well, it's not her own horn necessarily, but Aaron seemed to like the DJ air horn when I played it last night on the Twitch stream. Man, we have 6 minutes left. Damn, 5 minutes and 45 seconds left. So I guess I need to, Wes, you are just going crazy tonight, getting all sorts of stuff deleted. You're being a bad boy, Wes. Bad boy. All right, so I guess since we've done a 3-hour show, I didn't even talk about the one thing I wanted to talk about real quick. Anyway, there's another thing that I did talk about, the Jacksonville thing. I really want to talk about the other thing real quick, because there's another thing that a lot of leftists wanted to talk about, which is why didn't the Democrats codify Roe? Democrats didn't codify, like, they had many opportunities to codify Roe. During Jimmy Carter, they had the majority in Congress in the House and the Senate during Jimmy Carter. You didn't have majority of Congress that was pro-choice during Jimmy Carter, even though they were Democrats. You didn't have a majority of Democrats who were pro-choice. They were not going to codify Roe. And you just had Roe as a Supreme Court ruling. Nobody was talking about codifying Roe at that point, period. B, during Obama's presidency, they had a filibuster-proof majority for less than 60 days. During those 60 days, the one thing that they were focused on was the Affordable Care Act, and they were primarily focused on. So when Obama said, it's not my legislative priority right now to get Roe versus Wade passed, or codified Roe versus Wade passed, that's because he was working on the Affordable Care Act and getting that passed, especially because stupid Scott Brown was there, because Ted Kennedy died, and then you had those days, so you had to finagle all of that stuff, and then Scott Brown was being elected because the Democrats elected an idiot to be the nominee against Scott Brown, and she was terrible. She's lost twice statewide, so you had to play those shenanigans and do the passage of the ACA with the filibuster-proof majority, and then to do the reconciliation to get rid of some of the other shenanigans that took place. But they did get the Matthew Shepard hate crime bill passed, which was good. But even then, you didn't even have a majority in either house of pro-choice legislators. Even then, even when he had 60 votes in the Senate, you didn't have majority of votes that were pro-choice that would have passed the codified Roe anyway. And then when Joe Biden had control of both the House and the Senate, because Georgia came through and got us 50 votes in the Senate, you had 50 votes in the Senate, but you had Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin was also not going to vote to codify Roe because he's pro-life or anti-abortion, anti-choice, whatever. So the idea that the Democrats could have codified Roe is ridiculous and absurd. And had they done it, it wouldn't have mattered, because the activist conservatives, the 5 activist conservatives on the court, because Roberts still believes in stare decisis, he would have voted to keep the Mississippi law at 15 weeks, but would not have voted to overturn Roe, which would not have enabled all of these other laws to get passed. But you had the other 5, Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett. Those 5 activist conservatives overturned Roe with Dobbs. It's ridiculous to think that they would not have overturned a codified Roe either, so it wouldn't have mattered had they codified Roe, because they still would have overturned the codified Roe just as much as they would have overturned the Roe versus Wade legal precedent as well. So the idea attacking Democrats for not codifying Roe is an absurd argument made by leftists who are just worried about attacking Democrats and who are not worried about having a legitimate discussion whatsoever, because they don't understand how politics works. They don't actually want to have a discussion about how the Supreme Court works, and they don't want to understand the fact that the reason that we have Roe versus Wade overturned is simply because of the fact that people didn't come out because they flipped from Bernie to Trump in 2016, because they were mad that Bernie lost, and those emails or what have you. 12% of Bernie voters flipped Trump, and that's why we ended up with Donald Trump, and that's why he was able to name 3 Supreme Court justices,
60 seconds.
And that's why Roe versus Wade was overturned, and we lost abortion rights protection nationwide in this country. Anyway, as the end of Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right, this week. Tomorrow night on Twitch, I may be late. It's my son's graduation from 8th grade. That's at 5, but we're taking him to dinner. So I'm doing a Twitch stream tomorrow, but it may start a little bit later. But just follow Twitter. I'll keep you informed on Twitter when it's going to start. Till next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
10 seconds.